Go ahead and bring our meeting to order. And let's stand. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, and let's have Principal Toby lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you will, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Toby. We'll begin with any public comment. Do we have any cards that you know of, JJ?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I believe I need to call the roll.
Oh, right here it says roll call. Yeah, that.
John Mayer. Here. Barbara McClory is absent. Howard Rosenberg.
Here.
Lisa Ruggiero.
I'm here.
Nick Smith.
Here.
Angela Taylor.
Here.
Kyle Hood. And I'm Veronica Frankel. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Now we'll have any public comment. I don't have any cards. JJ, you don't have any? There's none there from the audience. Okay, just for the record, to allow time for anyone that, especially in the school system, that may want to comment on the K-5 math textbook adoption, I'm going to just reverse items number 6.03 and 6.04. So the West Ed presentation will occur first, and then we'll go into the agenda item 6.03, which is the K-5 math textbook adoption. So just reverse those two. All righty. Okay, we will go into board reports. We have to move. Okay, motion. Let's have another. Hey. All right. I will entertain the motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the agenda is approved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, the motion is carried. Now we will go into board reports. And as typical, we will start with Veronica Frankel.
I have only just a couple of things to report. I wanted to mention that I think the day after our last board meeting was the date of the Teacher and Leaders Council meeting, which I attend in Carson City. We had staff from Washoe County present a request to utilize an alternate system, which is different but equivalent to the state system. I want to commend our team for the incredible job that they did, especially Don Huckabee, our Human Resources Director, and Mike Paul from Human Resources, as well as Kristen McNeil, our Deputy Superintendent, and Ben Hayes from Accountability. They did a great job with the presentation, gave us lots of food for thought. There was some information that the Department of Education presented, some questions that they had, so we suspended the decision on whether to make the recommendation to the Department of Education, and we'll be hearing about it. We'll be talking further about that at the next meeting, so that's just an update on that. And then I would just want to mention that I had the opportunity to meet at a recent meeting, 4 students, and I know, Angie, you were there as well, as was John, 4 students from Reno High School who are finalists. Their team is finalists in the We the People competition, and which is coming up in Las Vegas at the beginning of next month. And they were so impressive in what they shared about what they talk about and how they really delve into the Constitution and the amendments to the Constitution and making it real and making it matter. And they have to really be ready to defend and talk about and explain their position on things to judges. And I was just so impressed with that group of people, and kudos to them and to Principal Hackbush, I believe his name, the principal of Reno High School. That was just an amazing team. I also want to recognize that we have 2 other teams going to the state competition in addition to Reno High School, Reed High School, and Angie, you've got to help me with the third one. Was it Galene? Was it Incline? So Incline. I had totally forgotten what the third one was, but I'm just really proud of those teams and that organization and that process. It's been really amazing. So that's my report.
Trustee Rosenberg.
This will be a somewhat different kind of a report. We've just started school at the university. We are down on our remedial students. Substantially down on our remedial students, which pleases me no end. However, It doesn't touch me personally as much as what happened today. I have a visual foundations class, which is a beginning design class. The majority of the enrollment is Reno. Always has been. Last couple of years, I've not been particularly thrilled with what I saw. Today, they put up their first pieces of work. They were fantastic. Not my teaching, because I haven't gotten the chance to teach them anything yet. Just what they came with, and the ability to work and the willingness to work. It's a substantial change from what I've seen in past years. And I congratulate all of us.
Thank you, Trustee Rosenberg. Trustee Mayor.
Yes. The annual Martin Luther King. Yeah. The Martin Luther King dinner was special this year. I felt that it was a terrific speaker, but what I like best is to see all our high school kids that act as maitre d's and take you to your seat all dressed in tuxedos and nice prom dresses, and to talk to some of them about their schools and what they're taking and so forth. It's just a great experience, so I enjoyed that very much. And this weekend I was at the Nevada Association of School Boards, and we had a wonderful meeting and passed a lot of things and appointed a lot of people, and talked about the Nevada Land Trust for just the schools, not the overall one, and what we're going to do, and appointed some people to some committees to see what we can do to get our fair share of that money for the state of Nevada. Then I visited 2 schools. I was at Moss, which was tremendous. Kate Smith, which is the gym hid from everybody else in a little area of Sparks, and it was a tremendous experience, a lot of neat kids. And then I was at Alice Maxwell, and they're doing quite well there, but they're growing faster than weeds. Same with Kate Smith. Kate Smith had 14 new students the first day after Christmas, and they're already on the list of overcrowding. 14 new students after Christmas to add to their already large impact at that school. But they're making it, they're doing all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hood.
From the Student Advisory Board, we started working on the Student Symposium, and February 4th is going to be our first meeting on planning that, and I think that's it.
How's school going?
School's going great.
Yeah, good answer. Thank you, Mr. Hood. Trustee Vicario.
Thank you, Betty. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's been a busy 2 weeks. I spent 2 full days at the NIAA statewide meetings with colleagues from across the state, talking about student activities. It was an interesting meeting because one of the agenda items was the transgender policy, and I was very proud of our own Brian Roth, who spoke up very clearly about the school board's policy and how important it is, and the expectation of how we want our students treated. And so I think it was very informative for many of the members to hear the good work that the school district has done on that. I had an opportunity to attend a great pizza party at Rain Shadow, and that was so wonderful to interact with the students, the parents, and the staff. And they're on the agenda today, and I'm really looking forward to that agenda item. But I think one of the most meaningful things that happened to me this week is I was able to tour Pine Middle School and see the work that has been done by our staff, the construction crews, and the process put in place for our students by our administration. You should see the tiles in Pine. They are absolutely beautiful. I mean, what a difference in the feel of the school. And I'm sure Trustee Taylor would agree with me, and Superintendent Davis. I mean, it's just an absolute different feel in there. What a difference just changing the tile out. If many of you know that if you were to put tape on the tiles, they would come up. And so it's just, and the ceiling, what are these called? Whatever these ceiling tiles, or I mean, beautifully white. One of the teachers commented, you know, for something so tragic to happen over break to our school, this was really a positive way for the kids to come back. So really kudos to everyone, especially to the construction crews who got in there and made it safe for the kids to come back with the removal of the asbestos. So I'm really, really proud of the work that happened over at Pine. And then last but not least, I want to just give another plug for the state of education. We'll be highlighting some wonderful things next Monday at 6 o'clock at Damani Ranch. Exciting things will be announced, and so I hope everyone can make it. And if you can't make it, you can follow it live on Twitter. I think Charles will be live tweeting too. So, and then also, as usual, continued meeting with a lot of constituents and having a lot of good conversations with community members. So.
Thank you, Trustee Ruggiero. Trustee Smith? Pass, okay. For myself, a lot of what I was able to participate in these last couple of weeks has been mentioned, so I'll just add a couple of other things. I had a chance to attend an orientation session, if you will, for student leaders that are employees and part of their ambassador staff at the student union at the University of Nevada. And I mention that because a very large percentage of those students were from our own school district. And so it was just really great to see students that came through our school district in leadership positions and working and being part of being great ambassadors there on campus after they've done it. Many of them were involved in student leadership in their high schools and so on. So it was just pretty cool. It was a couple of hundred kids for an hour and a half. So it was, I should say, students for an hour and a half. And it took a lot out of me. They were very, very, very energetic, but it was a lot of fun. But the biggest thing was to see that we're helping to build student leaders that are having an impact thanks to the work of you and your colleagues, Mr. Hood, thanks to the work of all those leadership opportunities, those leadership classes and courses that they have in their high schools. So that was really great to see. As Vice President Mayer mentioned, going to the MLK dinner is always a treat. And really great speaker, and she actually has a children's book out, which she spoke to a couple hundred kids at the Boys and Girls Club over there on 9th Street, and just really entertaining, really engaging, really good story for those that missed it. You really missed a treat. And one of the other things though that happens at that dinner were essay award winners. They awarded 4 essay contest winners, those that wrote an essay on pursuing the dream in 2016. And of course, 3 of them came from our own high schools. And they will be involved, I believe, in our next presentation, next success presentations. We'll get a chance to meet them, but that was a treat as well. Rain Shallow, I had never been to Rain Shallow School before. Went, had a great time. There was wonderful pizza there. There was great energy there. Met a lot of great kids. So Toby, thank you for all of that work. I know many of my fellow trustees were there. Some of us passed each other. Some like you were there, Trustee Ruggiero. I never even saw you. I just heard that you were there. And in the corner eating pizza. It was great homemade pizza, but it was a great night just to see the kinds of things that are happening there at the school and how excited those students are. I got a chance to speak with some of their board members as well. And then at Pine Middle School, as Trustee Ruggiero mentioned, and she didn't mention, but she is an alumna of that school, a very proud alumna. And one of the things that we did, the highlight of my visit there was when we got a chance to talk to the students about what they felt being back at the school, what it meant to them. And then really I watched some of their news interviews and they were asking the students, what did they do on the break? And video games, watched a lot of TV, you rode my skateboard and so, but there was one kid that said, oh, I studied because I can't afford to miss 2 weeks out of my education. Clearly a plant. No, not really. But no, he was very serious about his education, and he just explained that he could not afford to waste those 2 weeks. And so it's great that they're building those kinds of students at Pine Middle School as well. So it's been a busy and a very good 2 weeks. Trustee Davis, Superintendent Davis.
I don't want to be elected. Okay, so I want to send a shout out to all the staff who worked to get Pine ready to go, and the teachers there. Like, the classrooms were beautiful, and the excitement when we went to visit classrooms, especially a science class in that one wing that had tons of stuff, and the turtle and the animals, and just as a former teacher, you know when you leave on spring break, on Christmas break, you think it's all going to be there, and you show up, and it's not. But they were there, ready to go, had technology going, and ready to teach for kids. So just to thank you for staff doing that, and a shout out again to the Boys Club of Truckee Meadows, to Junior Achievement, and to the Food Bank of Northern Nevada, who really helped wrap their arms around our kids and our families to support us during this time. Of course, the MLK dinner was awesome, John, and I lost a bet to you, so I paid up today. But it was a great time by all, and having an opportunity to talk to people about where we were going as a district. We held our first conversation corners where the community had an opportunity to come out and ask the superintendent questions. So I want to thank communications for setting that up. It was a great success, and we have those scheduled throughout the months to come. Kyle and the Student Advisory Board, how much fun did we have this week? You didn't even tell everything. You guys had great discussions, but I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'll let you share that whenever you're ready to share. But the kids had some great conversations, really excited about the data piece and what they're going to do with data as it looks at our district. I spoke at the Republicans Men's Club, which was exciting. And then I want to say that Trustee Ruggiero talked about our transgender policy, but I've been invited to sit on a national commission regarding the work we have done here in Washoe, because they feel that we've done some trend-setting things, and they have reached out to us to serve on this national committee to expand on this. And as you know, we have a lot of families that experience this, and the families that we have, when they come talk to me, they are so grateful about the policy that we put in place. And so we are just excited about this opportunity that we have. Lead, Teach, Learn opened up Friday. We had some wonderful kids from Clayton Middle School that, man, the dynamic duo, they were awesome. We had kids talk about their experience and culture at Clayton, and he cracked jokes about his principal, but what you could tell is they really had a love for that staff and that learning community there. NAS, the Nevada Association of Superintendents, I was a busy girl this week. Just as superintendents get together and talk about the impacts on bills that were passed, how do that impacts our teachers and our principals and our students, and how do we accomplish some of this? Very happy to say that Washoe is really taking an active role in leading some of those initiatives. I know the staff doesn't like that I raise my hand and volunteer, but we do. And I think to close out, I visited Rain Shadow also, and I'm going to say her name wrong, but is it okay. No, the student that I was with, Vanina, right? I spent a lot of time with Vanina, and we talked a lot about school and had an opportunity to share her story with me. And it was great because I kind of pulled them away from all the people, and I just started drilling questions on my own. I'm like, talk to me, right? But just a wonderful spirit, and her story is one that I will share partially later. We talked about if it was okay for me to share a little bit of her story, but just an amazing, resilient student. So kudos to Rain Shadow and the work that you do there.
All right, fantastic. Busy week for everybody. Busy couple of weeks. We do have, before we get into the consent items, we do have one public comment card. So we're going to call Melissa Bozer. Melissa, come on up. Right here, welcome, and you will have 3 minutes. And thank you, Mr. Hood, for being of assistance.
It's actually Melissa Bozen, B-O-E-S-E-N.
Bozen.
Yes,
Gotcha. Thank you.
I should have
Excuse
been
me.
a doctor.
Yeah, that's okay. Got it here. Thank you. Excuse me.
Actually, I just wanted to take a couple of quick minutes of your time and just to go ahead and introduce myself to you. I am the president of the Washoe Education Support Professionals. Mike Horner has stepped down due to some personal reasons, so I have been assigned to this role. And I just wanted to take a couple minutes just to introduce myself. I have been with the district for 12 years. I'm a risk management technician is my full-time job. And then I also have 2 beautiful sons who are also in the public education. They go to Silver Lake. So I have a vested interest on both sides of the table, and I would like to invite each and every one of the trustees and our superintendent to our next board meeting which will be February 3rd at 5:30 at the West office. So that way you can kind of see what we do when we have our board meetings. And I'm available if anybody has any question or need to contact me for any reason. And I would just thank you for your continued support. Other than that, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll take a look at the consent agenda. Any specific public comments for the consent agenda? None being seen. Any items, any trustee would like to remove any item for individual consideration from the consent agenda?
I'd like
Yes, sir,
to
Mr. Mayor.
move 3.04.
Okay. 3.04. Any other items, trustees? Okay, that being said, I will entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of Trustees approves consent agenda items 302 through 309 with the exception of 304.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Okay, the motion is carried. 3.04, consideration of approval of the grant application to the Nevada Department of Education Office for a Safe and Respectful Learning Environment under the Social Workers in Schools Block Grant Program in the amount of $140,225.78. All right, and approaching for comments. Thank you. We'll start with you, Catherine. Turn your mic on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you.
Added a second.
President Taylor.
There it is.
Okay, President Taylor, Superintendent Davis, and our Board of Trustees. For the record, my name is Catherine Loudon, and I coordinate Washoe County School District school counseling and school social work.
And for the record, I'm Lauren Olin, Director of Grants.
Okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I just wanted to know the scope of this and what these monies are going to be used for. Is it district-wide, maybe some social workers to work district-wide, or just what it is?
Well, the scope of work is very limited due to the time frame. The money has to be expended by June 30th, and we receive the money on early January. So the scope of work basically is to hire 4 social workers, and they're at targeted schools that were based on using a system of data, both student data and social emotional learning data, and those schools were selected. So because the time frame is so short, we can't go out and hire somebody because the grant ends June 30th. So we are doing a contract with social workers in our area to provide those services. And it's based on a model that we're already using with a federal grant called Project Prevent, which has been very successful. So we do believe we'll be able to get some good work accomplished, even though there's a short time frame.
Under that federal grant, how many social workers do we have?
On the federal grant,
Yes.
3.
3, and they work throughout the district?
No, sir. That's targeted for the North Valleys. And so it's a North Valley High School, it's feeder schools, and then a couple other schools, Washoe Innovations and Inspire.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Also, for the record, again, this is Catherine Loudon. We do have other school social workers, so we have the North Valleys vertical that receives social work support. We also have through the Options Program social workers, and then we have social worker support at Sparks Middle School, as well as several other programs that we're working on. But there's supposed to be a new grant rubric released from the Nevada State Department of Safe and Respectful Learning Environments, where we as a district can apply for more contracted mental health supports, including social workers. And at that time, we plan to review that application and apply for others.
You know, this is something I think, if I may,
Please.
this is something I think we ought to look at for the legislative session coming up to fund social workers throughout our district and in our individual organizations and so forth, lobby the legislature because they do a wonderful job in the schools.
Yeah, so this legislation is provided by the Nevada State, or this funding for these social workers is provided by the Nevada State Legislature through lobbying efforts that the district supported in general as a part of providing comprehensive mental health services and support in our district. So this funding that we received is a result of the legislature approving things in its last session.
And that runs out when?
The period for funding for this will run out at the end of next school year. So school year 16-17, we're expecting to see another RFP for funding, hopefully late spring, early summer, so that we can use this money throughout next school year.
Great.
And it was in your board report, but the schools that are funded for the social workers, 2 at Reed High School, 1 at McQueen, and 1 at Damani Ranch.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Are there any other questions or comments from the trustees? Okay. That being said, I will entertain a motion.
I move for approval of agenda item number 3.04 as outlined by staff.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Board members? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, ladies. Oh. Okay, we'll move on to our next agenda items, legislative items. I don't have any public comment cards. Are there any? No public comment cards? Okay, then, we will have agenda item 4.01, informational update on the activities of the Public Schools Overcrowding and Repair Needs Committee, affectionately known as PSORN. Thank you very much. Mr. Sean Carey is here.
We always love affection. Thank you. First, I want to extend a very heartfelt thanks to the staff that's under the direction of Tracy Davis. They have been absolutely superb in supporting the efforts of this committee. Particularly in the last few weeks, they have exceeded all of our demands, and they have, because of our timeline, been demands. And our committee has been able to rely upon your staff every step of the way. And I wanted to make sure Tracy knew how much our committee appreciates all of the work that's gone into this particular issue. We have, since I last talked to you, determined that a ballot issue is needed to address the needs of our school district here in Washoe County. And we are unanimously adopted that. And if you think about having 18 leaders from our community, from everything from casinos to real estate to parents to PTA to representatives of cities, your problem in capital construction is overwhelming. And our committee voted unanimously to support putting together an actual question. And I think that is a tremendous outcome. We also had the ability to look at your strategic blueprint, which you worked on as trustees under the leadership of Tracy Davis, in short order show us the future. And we're from all walks of life, and understanding academics and understanding how schools work was very invaluable to have the school district staff there helping us to accomplish that task. We followed your blueprint. We could understand it, and it was easy to look at the issues with that. And I thank you for that work. It would have been very difficult to understand the ins and outs of education without a professional team supporting us. We have also decided to select a funding level, and that was also a unanimous vote. And from the work of your staff, Mr. Etchart prepared 4 scenarios that would fund capital needs of the school district between $600 and $800 million. Looking at 5 tax sources, we dropped that down to 2 tax sources. So we are looking solely at property tax and sales tax. And the range that I'm speaking of is to try and find that balance that's right for the taxpayer and that meets the critical needs. We have $1 billion problem. $1 billion problem. Wasn't created by the Board of Trustees, but it was created by our community. And we have to look to our community for solutions. And that involves a ballot measure. And that's really what we're trying to get to. So when we look at the critical needs that we have, you have expeditiously taken advantage of what the legislature provided you to use the rollover bonds. And that is a source of some $315 million over the next 10 years, inclusive of this year. And that leaves us with a gap of $781 million if we leave some things out. Now, there's a simple list built upon the work of your staff that we looked at. And I would like you to look at that list and let us know that works. It's not everything. We were unable to go to the full amount of the ideal plan, as you recall, just as you had reluctance, I imagine, with those numbers. But we're looking to fund an awful lot of critical needs. And at the top of that was your list, your 5 priorities: safety, and then looking at avoiding double sessions, and then working our way out of multi-tracking. And so those things were right at the top of the list. But I just would look for you, for your leadership again, to look at the list and let us know. We have adopted that number. It's between $600, $800 million, $781 million. We're coming together soon in a public hearing. I believe it'll be on the 4th of February at 6 o'clock at the county county chambers. And that's going to be set up by your wonderful staff as quickly as possible. And we'll count on getting the word out so that people have a chance to react to this plan. And we will take in a public hearing at that time. So you're certainly all invited. And we certainly look to get people to react to this question and the magnitude of the problem we're facing. We also, we don't live on past the delivery of a question to the county commissioners. And so there's a couple areas that I wanted to probe you as well. And that's the area, if this list was adopted, would it be followed? If we were going to go to the voters, are we asking them to look at this list, fund this list, go down this road from your strategic blueprint and do this? So my second question to you, when you have time to look at this, is this going to be followed? Because we need to be sure in the question we put before the voters, it has your support. It's the list that we've come up with, but if there was a problem with the list, I'd love to know it now, because we can't make changes in the near future. So if you could, through Tracy being on our committee, or whatever way you would like to solve that, I would like some affirmation that you see this as the balance. The third area is one that we're not haven't agendized, but it's on my mind, and that's to look at ensuring that we have oversight into the future. And that's not my job. I'm the chair of the committee, but I do want you to decide how we can be sure, with the taxpayer in mind, that these monies will be used in the manner in which we have worked so hard to create. And what level of oversight? I've been through the fights over junior high school in my community of Sparks, and it gets pretty contentious. We have an unpredictable amount of growth. 64,000 students today, 10,000 more within 10 years. At the low number, 10,000 new students in 10 years. So we're going to have a lot of contention on that. So I would just look for you to consider that as trustees of our school district, and let me know your thoughts. So those are some things I need your feedback on. Obviously, you're a statutory organization, and I'm not here to entangle you in what your sworn duties are. I'm only asking for what your thoughts are, and if we can find a way to find a balance. It's all to build credibility of this measure in November when someone says yes or someone says no. And the no is very dramatic. It is not something that you can solve without new revenues. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but the no is something we're very concerned about. So take those 3 questions. Our committee would like that feedback. Please, if you have an opportunity to invite everyone to our public hearing, whenever that is. Our next meeting will focus on how much sales tax, how much property tax. Obviously, we have to find a balance there in a very tight tax structure. We have a statutory limit of $3.66 for property tax, except if approved by a voter override, but that's in new ground for taxpayers. We have a sales tax rate, which can become the highest in the state. And is that the right ground for us to be in? But in all of those discussions, we know we have to solve a problem. And I think our committee has spoken that we need a ballot question, we need to invest significantly in our schools, and we need to do that with a balanced approach. And so that tax question will be resolved very quickly. Then we'll proceed to write the question. We'll hand that question off to turn into a ballot measure through the county. And we have got good support from the legal team, your bond counsel, Lindsay, Neil. They're all going to make sure that we get a question there that's going to pass the muster of the things that come with the ground of putting a ballot question together. So that's what we're working on. Our committee has voted unanimously on these things, which doesn't surprise me in the face of the needs that we face here in the county. And I hope we address those needs in November to be the kind of the community we can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you mind, any questions of Mr. Carey? I have a couple, but I want to see if any of my colleagues have any. If you would, first of all, thank you. Thank you for your leadership on that committee, and thank you for taking the time every 2 weeks to come here and to keep us updated on the very important work that you're doing. It's a volunteer job. We know that, but we really appreciate your leadership, and it's a big job, a very important job. Just a couple of questions from me. One is, so the question needs to be written by a certain period of time, if I'm correct?
Yes, it is due to the Washoe County Commission as a question no later than April 2nd.
Okay.
And we intend in the next few meetings to accomplish that. And it is written in the firm that it will be a question. The statutory development of something with yeses and nos and inform and stuff like that, that is all to ensure that will be done properly under the supervision of the Washoe County. They are compelled by this legislation to place the question on the ballot. Mm-hmm. So there is a certainty once we act that we will have something on the ballot measure, and it will go through a proper process of your input, your bond counsel, those types of things, so that this thing is successful in its presentation.
The other question, you've asked us for some input, and I appreciate that. Is there a time limit, a time period by which you would like that input? We don't have another board meeting before your meeting on the 4th.
We're meeting again on the 12th of February to take on the tough discussions, most probably centered on taxes, and begin to dabble in the world of bond question stuff, ballot structures, that kind of stuff. So I understand you have a schedule. I think your input in February would be helpful. You need to ponder my question. Our committee is pondering that question. So hopefully there's a meeting of the minds in the month of February.
And then finally, there's a list that you've put together. Is there things you would like us to consider that so we can have our conversation as to whether or not we support that list? And I understand what informed that list, the work of our committee. That's available through Superintendent Davis? Okay.
Certainly work with Tracy to make sure she can lead those efforts with you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions, Mr. Carey? Thank you very much for all that work.
You're welcome.
Okay, now we'll move on to agenda item 5.001. Any public comment? This is our budget item. Thank you, Mr. Zazinski. That's coming forward. Public comment? Well, no public comment on the budget. Okay, so staff presentation to update the board and public regarding the 2016-17 budget. This is for information and discussion only.
President Taylor, Superintendent Davis, members of the board, for the record again, Tom Zazinski, Chief Financial Officer. And if you recall from our last budget update, Mike Schroeder, our budget director, and I updated you on the start of the budgetary process. And so I'm here just to give you a brief update today. So I think we indicated in the last process that through Superintendent Davis and the leadership team, we've started the departmental reviews of the budgets. We send out to each department head their budgets and have them review those, give their wishes and desires in terms of things that they may need that we'll see if we can help them solve. We call it a budget alteration process. That's underway. Our staff is now reviewing all of that process. Secondarily, what's happened is we start the enrollment process for fiscal year 17 now. So fortunately, we have a wonderful demographer in the capital projects area, Randy Baxley, and Randy has sent out enrollments to all the schools, and we allow the principals to review all those enrollment projections for fiscal year 17, and they send back, yeah, we agree, or no, we don't agree, and we kind of hash that out. And so that process is underway, and those enrollments, as you all recall from having gone through the budget process with us, is utilized for our formula-driven allocation process, how many teachers we assign to each school, and so on and so forth. So that process is underway. And so those are two critical elements for us to get prepared for the budget workshop that will occur in the month of March. And so we're working towards that so that we can spend a good portion of a day with you to go through that budgetary process so that you have a chance to review that budget with us. And of course, you'll have other opportunities past that budget workshop as well. So that's my brief update today, unless there's any questions I could answer other than to tell you we're working on it.
Any questions?
All right, great, thank you.
All right, well, we thank you very much. That's a full day of budget.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, look,
thanks.
I remember those binders from last year. Just
We'll bring them again this time.
all
So,
right.
yeah. All right, great, thank you.
I kind of figured you would. So, all right, thank you. Oh, public comment? Okay, all right. All right. Now we're going to go on to agenda item 6.01, consideration of approval of acquisition of real property located at 1980 Cleppy Lane in Sparks for the amount of $780,000 plus closing costs of approximately $3,900 for expansion of the George Ghetto Transportation Yard, and this is for possible action. I don't have any public comment cards on that, so we will go forward. Gentlemen.
Good afternoon, President Taylor, members. We're here before you this evening to request approval to purchase property in 1980 Cleppy Lane. This is right next to our Ghetto Transportation Yard over in Sparks, approximately 1.5 acres for $780,000. This will be funded through bond interest funds, interest that we've earned off our bond dollars. And then the closing cost, we would actually use a portion of Fund 20 Building and Sites funds to cover the building, the closing cost. Additionally, we've toured the site with our transportation staff, with our IT staff, and our capital project staff. In meeting there, this is going to provide a lot of opportunity to move some staff in there from transportation, open up bus spots in our south yard that is greatly overcrowded, help us at that central yard at Ghetto and our north yard. We'd be looking at moving some training in there, our director, assistant director, some other staff in there, frees up a lot of space. Also, I've had conversations with the city of Sparks. It looks like here in the near future, they're going to extend the North Truckee ditch project, which is enclosing the ditch that runs along there. That'll open up space for us as well in bus parking. They're looking at doing that here in the near spring. They'll be bonding and looking to going out to bid. That'll greatly enhance our ability to deal with the growth issues that we're facing right now. Currently, our yard there at Ghetto and at the South Yard, we're experiencing a lot of issues with parking and adding any additional staff or buses to that space. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Additionally, we do have members from Transportation Department here if there's any questions on how we intend to use the property.
Okay, any commentary, any questions from the board? And Trustee Smith, you mentioned you wanted to comment on this.
Can you, I know this has been a process. It seems like we had talked 7 or 8 months ago, Pete and I and Chris, I think you were there, about this property in the past, I believe, and how we were going to buy it once before and then we didn't buy it. Can you kind of go back? Because I think for people who aren't in the know, they should know what a great deal we got.
Sure. It actually, about 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, when it was Civil Air Patrol, the district had expressed interest initially in purchasing that when it first went on market. Unfortunately, at the time, it was decided not to go after it, and an outside person bought that property. Since that time, about a year ago, we were approached by the owner, and they had expressed an interest to sell to us at a price that at the time we just couldn't entertain. We did do an appraisal. And that's what you see here this evening is the appraisal price on that. He found another interested party. Unfortunately, that fell apart, and he did come back to us and look and to sell to us at the appraised value that we're presenting here tonight. So it's been a long process, but it's been one, if you talk to Rick Martin, that we've been eyeing that property for a long time. It really helps create a larger piece of property that'll function quite well for the district in the future, especially with the project that Sparks is looking at doing and closing the ditch. It'll greatly enhance our ability to add staff and busing and deal with some of the growth issues that we're going to face here, and we're already facing now and in the future.
No, please.
My next part of that question is, so we buy this property, how long until we can use it?
Almost immediately. I'd say in the next near month. In meeting with IT, our greatest issue at the moment will be getting internet over there. Most likely you're looking at $5,000 to $6,000 to figure out how to get some internet connectivity, probably through Wi-Fi and some antennas. And that would be immediate in the what we call Quonset huts in the front. The White Fleet in the main maintenance building in the back, we do need to do some power upgrades. Right now there's 220 in there. We need to get it up to 480 to operate our lifts. Right now we have, next week, we'll have somebody over there actually drawing up some designs if this is approved tonight so that we can look how to move forward. Initial estimates, we're probably going to look at 20 to 30,000 to upgrade that power in there so that we can operate our lifts. But by moving White Fleet in there, that opens up a lot of space down in the south yard for us where we're really in trouble.
Well, great work. I'm glad you guys are patient getting through this, because I think that number was like over $1 million initially. But we were patient, and God had it in the cards for us to get with the other buyer backing out. I think it's a fantastic deal at $780,000. Good job for negotiating that.
Mr. Boster.
Mr. Boster.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It wasn't certainly all me at all, but we did have patience, and state law is in our favor as well. We can only pay appraised value for properties, so that it's been over a year that we have been patient and just sitting on the sideline waiting until the property was available at that price and the seller would sell. And so here we are today.
Fantastic. Other comments? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Has that, the soil there been tested for contamination?
We didn't test the soil. They do operate a well. We actually get about 4.5 acre feet of water, and they've been running a well on there that meets all the standards. So we have not heard of any soils issues. Additionally, they also are not connected to sewer. They run on a septic. In the future, one of the things we'd want to do in the future is look at how to get on potable water and sewer. But at this time, we don't see that as necessary right away.
And the Sparks flood project's going to mitigate the flooding?
That'll extremely help us. Do you still sit within the river's floodways or flood zone? Absolutely. But if that project goes through and their intent is to look at possibly even filling in a good portion of the ditch, it goes out to the river now. If they're able to accomplish that with that project, you won't have the backwater issue anymore coming back there. And speaking with Sparks, that is their intent. They will look at the budget, but a good portion of it will be filled with the realignment in the back of our property.
Yeah, because that backwash goes all the way to the freeway.
Yep. That's how we ended up with the marina, if you remember.
Exactly. I went through that. And when a couple floods was all the way to Stanford Way. Mm-hmm. So
and Sparks has correctly identified how much benefit that's going to serve that industrial area.
And this is an enclosed channel, not a open.
Correct. You're looking at two, I believe it's 14 by 10 boxes that run through there. So a mini subway.
So now you're going to have the 3 parcels all connected.
Correct.
So you can move your buses in and out of those 3 parcels instead of
And with
just
that
leaving
ditch being
one.
filled, you gain a lot of accessibility for parking. You can't build a building on it, but it does offer up a lot of space for parking.
Good deal, good deal.
Yeah.
Great, any other comments? Oh, yes, Trustee
I'll
Smith?
make the motion if there's no other comments.
I just wanted to say, having visited this yard with Trustee Smith last fall, I was able to I can really see how this is going to make a huge difference. And you've done an incredible job, Rick, with the space you've had and the demands we have. So I want to thank you all for the work that you've done on this, and I'm excited to see this happening.
Fantastic. That means it. Trustee Smith?
Okay. I move the Board of Trustees approves the acquisition of the real property located at 1980 Cleppy Lane in Sparks for $780,000, plus half the closing cost of approximately $3,900 using unallocated interest earned on unspent bond proceeds.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It has been moved and twice seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. The motion is carried. Gentlemen, thank you for your work.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, because we need that space, and it's land's so hard to get these days, especially in that area.
All right, agenda item 6.02, consideration of possible action in regard to the future of Rain Shallow Community Charter High School, Rain Shallow, in light of information concerning its financial sustainability provided by Rain Shallow to district staff and to the Board of Trustees. This is for possible action, and as staff moves into position, we do have public comment, but we're going to get that after we have presentations from our staff. So, Dr. Green and your staff, please take it away.
Good afternoon, President Taylor, members of the board, Superintendent Davis, Byron Green, Chief Student Services Officer. For the record, we are back from our last board meeting of January 12th to bring an update and to be able to answer any questions for discussion and possible action regarding the Rain Shadow Charter. We do have, as in our last board meeting, we do have internal audit here at the end of our presentation if there are questions in regards for the finance review. We do have Catherine Loudon and Mark Hassauer from counseling to answer any questions. They have actually been on campus meeting with students and families, and of course we have our staff as well. Unfortunately, this is not the first time that this issue has been brought before the Board of Trustees. Several years ago, in 2012, this was a similar discussion and issue regarding Rain Shadow Charter School. For the last 3 years, Rain Shadow has barely met the financial requirements and as a result has been non-compliant financially for the last 3 years. At the last board meeting on January 12th, I did cite several NRS pieces of information in regards to the roles and responsibilities of the charter schools and the district to clearly lay out what is the responsibility. We thought we'd bring it back and actually put it up on 2 different slides so we could share with the board members the distinction of a district-sponsored charter school versus a district school and what those obligations are. So before I begin, and I apologize for the last board meeting, I failed to recognize and acknowledge the Rain Shadow Charter board members, and I wanted to do that at this time. So if we do have any Rain Shadow board members, I'd like to invite them to stand up to be recognized. The slides for this, there are 3 points in regards, at least for this, I think, conversation for the trustees today, is the second bullet on there is oversee the academic, financial, and organization vision and plans for the charter school. That is the responsibility of the board for Rain Shadow. Maintain a system of governance as outlined by NRS, and maintain a financial plan for the operation of that charter school. So day-to-day operations, finances, decisions of hiring and whatnot, that is the responsibility of the Rain Shadow Charter School Board and principal. That is not the responsibility of the Washoe County School District. However, it is the obligation of staff and also the trustees here to meet many of these, which I cited last time. The two that I do want to point out are the evaluation, approval, and declining of charter school applications, as well as renewals and revocations, as well as develop policies and maintain oversight and monitoring and performance feedback. And as our chief legal counsel also always reminds me to point out, it is the fiduciary, if I say this correctly, Chief, the fiduciary responsibilities of the board to make sure that we are providing appropriate and consistent oversight with all of our district-sponsored charter schools. So, last board meeting, I believe the principal came forward with information indicating that some concessions were made in regards for, I believe, 1.5 staff members. Ms. Cooper could speak to that soon. Also in regards to a possible pay cut or concession from current staff that may reduce the deficit that brought the concern originally to the board. So based upon, and I'll read this here, but Stacy can give more information when she comes up. Based upon internal audits estimates, Rain Shadow is projected to have an ending balance of, Stacy, 17,000?
Actually, no. We were actually waiting on some information back from the Department of Education regarding the hold harmless clause. Many of our schools are put under a hold harmless clause where Rain Shadow traditionally has been compensated for 113 students. But with the enrollment projected at 108, we needed to get clear clarification from the state because it does make some differences when we're looking into the nuts and bolts and the pennies that we are considering as we look at the closure or the ending of this school year for Rain Shadow. So I am passing around for you the projections that are most up to date and provided by internal audit. And like I stated, Paula is here today to address and discuss details regarding the audit. But in essence, it's not a $17,000 ending of the school year balance. It's indeed a $7,500 approximate balance for the end of the school year for Rain Shadow Community Charter High School.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes.
It's still in the black. It's still ending the school year in a positive. And as we have stated in previous presentation to you all, what's utmost important to all of us is that Rain Shadow has the opportunity to close this school year out in a positive balance as much as possible. None of us want to see Rain Shadow pressing into debt as the year closes. And that was one of our significant concerns the last time we were together. So ultimately, there are three options that we are considering today, and we are asking you to consider. The three options are as follows. The first one was the original, to revoke the charter of Rain Shadow on January 28th in order to minimize the financial shortfall for the school and to preserve the academic interests of the students. As we are well aware that there is not a significant concern for a financial shortfall. However, with the small staff that we are looking at Rain Shadow Community Charter High School, there is still the academic integrity for the students that is a concern. So we did leave that option up there for you today. Our option number 2 is to revoke the charter of Rain Shadow at the conclusion of this school year. That would allow Rain Shadow to close business as usual with students, graduate their seniors that they spoke to in the last presentation, but also stand firm on our history of concerns that have been dated all the way back to 2012. Or number 3, our option would be ultimately to allow Rain Shadow the opportunity to finish the school year business as usual with the opportunity to petition for a renewal in June with no guarantee that there would be a renewal granted by our Board of Trustees. And with that third option, it does need to be noted that the 2 weeks is our deadline for our renewal. So that is a timeline of concern for Rain Shadow as well.
Superintendent, members of the board, for the record, Mike Doring, Executive Director of Options Area. Based on the information that Rain Shadow has provided to us, which to our internal audit department, our office is recommending to the Board of Trustees that we allow Rain Shadow to continue to operate until the end of the school year with their charter contract being terminated at the end of the school year. And the reasons for our recommendation, and this is definitely not an easy decision to come to, but we believe that there's been a history of financial issues that have been significant and that it reflects just an inconsistent ability for Rain Shadow's board to maintain financial solvency. With that, there are some risks associated with that we want you to be aware of. We discussed that Rain Shadow had renegotiated the teacher's contract. By doing that, there's no guarantee that the staff will remain at the school until the end of the year. And, you know, it is a small staff there already. If staff were to leave, it could be detrimental to just the education of the students there. Another concern or risk that we want to point out to you is that whenever we're making projections or when an internal audit is projecting finances through the completion of the year, it's projection and estimates only. We cannot, you know, predict, or they cannot predict everything that could transpire. So we want to make sure you're aware of that. Finally, and we discussed this on the 12th as well, and Dr. Green mentioned it just briefly, NRS 386-515 articulates what the role of a sponsor of charter schools, what our role is, and if we're unable to do that role or failure to adhere to it, it could result in revocation of our ability to sponsor charter schools in general. So that's another thing that needs to be considered.
So we believe this is all the updated information for the trustees today. Of course, we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, Trustee Rosenberg. Thank you, Dr. Green and staff. Stacy and Mike.
I think we all feel pretty much the same way. The most important thing is the kids. I could care less about anything else. We pee away money on dumb things. We always have, we always will. So my first concern is the kids. Now, let's say that we take this recommendation, and tomorrow, out of the blue, an angel comes in with $4 billion and decides to endow them. They can still ask for a charter, true? Or no?
Yes, Rain Shadow would be able to apply for a charter again. That is correct.
No matter which way this kind of thing works.
Yes, sir.
I'm seeing some people saying no, that's not the case. So we are sure indeed that they may reapply.
They can reapply. NRS stipulates that any entity in the state of Nevada can petition for an application for charter school under the state charter school authority, under a school district sponsor, or a university. That's clearly articulated in NRS 386-535 and has been further expanded in 5351 in the most recent legislation. So a charter can petition to renew. Where the muddied waters get muddy, if I may say so, Board Member Rosenberg, is that when school performance, the star ranking system can impact the ability for the charter to merge with another charter school or to change sponsor. And in this situation, perhaps move to or petition to move to the state charter school authority. Because of the academic one-star performance of Rain Shadow, they would be unable to transfer their charter into another sponsoring entity or merge with another charter school based on that one-star performance clause. But they can indeed petition to open up a new charter, and it could be with Washoe County School District, the state of Nevada's Charter School Authority, or a university system.
With that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Trustee Smith.
Okay.
I think we're going to ask.
I just wanted to comment on something Howard said. I think you bring up a good point. It is about the kids, but if we're having open, honest conversation, part of it is if you put a nail in the coffin, right, and you revoke that, it may be hard for them to acquire a benefactor because some people don't want to, quote unquote, throw money after something that's already done. And so that's something to consider too. And why I kind of like the option of option number 3. I think that's the best way is to allow them to finish the year. It's going to be tight. It's going to be really, really tight. And all we have is some verbal commitments that these teachers have agreed to stay on to get through. But if they can finish with $7,500 left, go through the reapplication process, then that's a different conversation. We look at their financials, they have that to get through. But I'm afraid that if we revoke something, put that nail in, and somebody may not want to become the donor because, well, why am I going to do that if we're going to shut them down in June?
Okay, I see Trustee Frankel, then Trustee Rosario.
One of the thoughts that I had too is that the reason this was brought to us was because of the financial imperative, and I understand the history and I appreciate that, and I really do appreciate the quick turnaround on the work and the reevaluation of the updated information. So I want to start with that appreciation of staff for doing that. But I also, I would agree with Trustee Smith that in some ways, we, with the extension or the probationary one-year agreement that we entered into in July, we did so last year, which runs through July 1 of this year. We considered that past history when we made the decision to extend that contract on a probationary basis at that time. I think that if we don't take the action to use the word terminate or revoke today, that doesn't necessarily preclude us from denying the application for extension or continuation in the future, should they apply in the next couple of weeks. It sounds like that information should be brought to us. So I would agree that leaving it more open instead of using terms like revoke or terminate, that we continue under the current agreement that we have with the school, the financial imperative, urgency, emergency that was brought to us a couple of weeks ago, which has been addressed. That's no longer, even though it's tight, I hear that, that's no longer as imperative and as urgent. So I think, status quo, what we agreed to based on the analysis we received last year, I'm more comfortable with that and continuing and allowing that contract to finish as agreed upon and allowing them to present their request for continuation as a charter, as would any other charter school in our area. And I also want to say, and I didn't mention this when during my reports, that I also had a chance to visit Rain Shadow and really do recognize that part of what we see with a program like Rain Shadow, as with many of the other programs both in the district and the charter programs, is that they complement the needs of our students in our district and provide a very important role. And so I want to acknowledge that and the incredible work that I witnessed and the incredible energy and enthusiasm and leadership I saw from the students who gave me a full tour of the school. So I have to say I was very impressed with Michonne and James, who I think are probably here somewhere. Yes, there they are. Thank you for your tour. But I just want to mention that and to thank them and Principal Wiedemeyer.
Thank you, Trustee Frankel. Trustee Rosario.
So I do want to echo what Trustee Smith and Trustee Frankel are saying. I like where you're headed with this, and I want to add something that I'm hoping will make the trustees feel a little more comfortable. I was contacted last week by a local philanthropist, businessman, and longtime education advocate who is very interested in working with Rain Shadow. And so I think there's some hope on the horizon for additional support. He's asked to stay anonymous, but is looking forward to making contact with the Rain Shadow folks after today's meeting. So I see something that there might be some possibility to get some additional assistance. I appreciate the presentation by staff and the work that you've done. The turnaround has been phenomenal. So I know you all are working hard and truly have the best interest of the students at heart. So I'm very appreciative of that. I'm leaning towards where Trustee Smith and Frankel are headed. I think we need to continue to honor that probationary agreement that we made with them, and hopefully this person in the community will be able to provide some additional assistance or guidance in some areas of the financial areas that they're having challenges in. And there's definitely, I don't want to be remiss and not say this, there is work to be done at Rain Shadow, and I believe our staff has been very helpful in assisting the Rain Shadow community, and so, but it's really on Rain Shadow to continue to work hard to make these changes, because you are meeting a group of students' needs, and we're very appreciative of that, and we want to honor that. But we also have guidelines that we must follow and laws that we must follow, and we will uphold those in the strictest manner. So I do want to emphasize that. But again, I'm hopeful one more time that we can pull this off. So,
Trustee Rosenberg.
I thank my colleagues for clarity. I also have someone who is exceedingly interested in Rain Shadow, who is not local, who is, however, regional, and cares a great deal about the schools charter schools particularly. Also, and I think this is most important, one of the things that I have been in despair about for a long time is the apathetic nature of some of our students who don't really seem to get involved in things. I can accuse a lot of the kids at Rain Shadow for being things. Apathetic ain't one of them. Child, I don't know how you're still crying. You've been going at it for a week and a half. They care. They care a great deal. That, to me, is money in the bank. We'll worry about the rest of it later.
Trustee
I'm
Franklin?
prepared to make a motion.
Well, we need to have public comment.
Oh, we can, do we have to do public comment before the
We
motion?
do public comment before.
Okay.
Yes, Trustee Smith?
And I know we still need public comment, but I'm not sure that we actually need to make a motion, because the reason for this in the first place was to discuss their financial ability, and I think we'd only be making a motion if their finances were in a way that we were in a position that we had to cease operations. But we do have a binding agreement that goes until the end of June, essentially July 1st, to let them get through their probationary period. They've proven that they have the $7,500. It's going to be very, very tight. We know that, right? But hopefully, because of these public meetings, more philanthropists are listening and are hearing that we're not giving up on Rain Shadow. And it sounds like those stories, some people kind of beat me up for saying, sell your story, but it's working, right? It sounds like people are hearing those stories and wanting to believe. I don't know that we need to make a motion. I think that we can just continue. They have the, I don't know what we would be doing to make a motion. We have an agreement with them already, and they have the money. There's no fiscal emergency at this point.
Mr. Malloy, I see you.
So can I just clarify with the attorneys, so you can put this in there? So based on that thought, that means that it expires July 2016?
That's correct, or
Okay.
or June 30th of 2016. I mean, it probably is an error in the way it's written. That it should, I think it was intended to last for a year, and it started on July 1 of 15. It would go therefore and end at midnight on June 30th of 16.
But it wouldn't
So that-
necessarily end because they're in a probationary period.
right.
So it'll come back to our review so we can decide
Well-
the continued fate at a later date of Rain Shadow to renew their charter or not renew their charter.
It seems as Mr. Malloy has a different legal opinion.
I do think that it would end under that scenario without a motion on June 30th at midnight.
And I will say this, and we certainly want to have public comment. I do have one card, and there may be others. I think there's a message that can be sent with a motion, if it is a desire of those that would like to vote in that way for that. So just things to consider. But let's hear from, I have one public comment card, and there may be others. If at this point, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Rombero?
Yeah, just for the record, I agree with Mike's interpretation as well. We've been talking about this before the meeting started, looking at the contract, and I too think it expires June 30th at midnight of this year.
Thanks for us. No, thank you, gentlemen. With the board's pleasure, then we'll hear public comment, and then we'll bring it back to the table for a motion if one will indeed be made. The only public comment card we've received at this point is from Jennifer Hatinga. I said that name last time, so I know I said it right this time. I know I'm teachable. Come on up, Jennifer. Once again, 3 minutes. Thank you.
Educable.
Thank you.
I would like to thank all of the Board of Trustees who actually came and witnessed our little miracle place that everybody says is magic and can see how amazing and talented our kids are. And but that stems from these amazing people back here, the teachers, principals, staff that spend all of their crazy hours, but they also make themselves completely available to us as parents. I can walk in there any day and talk to the principal, talk to the counselor, talk to the teachers, email them, get answers. I haven't always had that as a parent. So I think that needs to be taken into account. Also, listening to some of the comments last time, as a sponsored or a Washoe County School District sponsored, and you are, as you said, responsible for 64,000 children, you know yourselves, there are more children than the 113 that don't fit the mold of regular schools. and they're not being sent to places like Rain Shadow where they could thrive and do well and not be part of the statistic of non-graduating. Had I sent my daughter to her zone school has a worse graduation rate than Rain Shadow, 56%. So there is something wrong, and there is something broken there. The other thing is my daughter's part of the 20 children that came to Rain Shadow as a freshman, where 19 of them are graduating. Only one child that started as a freshman isn't graduating. And I think there's something to be said about that and something to be looked at for that. And so I appreciate that you guys are going to allow them, it sounds like, to continue. But I think there needs to be more done about that. The other thing is, as a mom, I was a little upset that my 13-year senior came home and told me that her main option that was given to her was Job Corps. Job Corps makes her not part of Washoe County School District, makes her not graduating with a normal high school diploma, and makes it seem like her, Washoe County School District was washing their hands of her. And considering last time when they were all here, they were told that they were loved and that they were going to be seen and they were going to be made sure that they graduated. Job Corps isn't the answer for that. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Emily Roos. Huh? Reese. It looks like Roos. I know who you are,
It's all
Emily
right.
Roos. Emily Reese.
I should write better. I'm an English teacher.
You have
Forgive me.
Thank you.
Anyway, I hope that I actually make it brief for once in my life. I would like to thank all of you for coming to the little pizza party I invited you to, and it was really great to see everyone. And I know that the students were extremely encouraged. So with that, I would like to actually request if you're able to make it more often, or all of you who didn't get to visit, stop by. One of the things that I notice on the Facebook page, for instance, or the Washoe County website, Washoe County School District website, is when you visit schools, it tends to bring some great PR to that school. So I would like to encourage all of you to stop by and post pictures, or if you see something on our Facebook page and would like to share it onto your personal Facebook page, whatever that is. Because if we're going to get students in so that we can get the per pupil funding, we need to be able to get students there. And when you, who are public figures, get the opportunity to share those things, it might actually help us. So I just wanted to encourage that more. And then also I'd like to thank our students for hanging in there. Last 3 weeks we've been in kind of a limbo, eh? So nice job, students and parents. And again, thank you for kind words and thinking through this very carefully. You responded very well. And I'm proud to call you board members of our students and our parents and your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ruth. Just kidding. Kelly Stanley.
Hi, since I was so very vocal in trying to make sure that everybody understood how important Rain Shadow was, I wanted to get back and be very vocal in thanking you all for considering us and really taking the time to get to know our kids and putting this into practice. Every child by name and face to graduation. It means so much to us. And I'm sorry I didn't get to see you at the pizza party. I took my daughter to visit the university that she's been accepted at. So we were out there, and I'm just so touched by everything that was said here today. And you were right; it's a goddamn miracle. So thank you very much for considering it, and I'm thrilled that my daughter is going to get to graduate from this school.
Thank you. Those are all the public comment cards. There's never. Come on up. You can just give it to us. Go ahead, Toby, if you would, and just give it to us after.
I want to say that I really appreciate the hard work that everybody has done here. And I'm thrilled to be given the opportunity to resubmit a charter for renewal. That excites me to no end because we know we have work to be done and we just really want to do that. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that I know that this places a lot of extra demand on these folks right here who have been very supportive of us in the past and only wish to see us be successful and be self-sustaining. And I also know that it's no easy task to have to evaluate matters that involve human sentiment with an objective and unbiased perspective, which I know that they've tried to do. But I'm super overjoyed over the direction that this is taking, and I'm hoping that we're going to continue to have your support as we move forward with ideas of how we can be better and how we can help complement our school district and do better by students. So thank you so much. That's all I have.
Very welcome, yes. Are there others for public comment? Coming up, sir. And once again, please identify yourself. We'll take your card.
Good afternoon. My name is Jay Johnson. I was here 2 weeks ago. In deference to what I've heard today, I'm going to keep my comments short. But I also want to extend my thanks to the board for the thoughtful, reflective conversations that we've had, some of us have had, as well as some of those who were able to attend the pizza party last week. So I'll just leave you with a couple of quotes. One, the test of the morality of a society is what it does for its children. That's Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And lastly, the greater danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that it is too low and we reach it. So again, my thanks to all of you, and I look forward to seeing you in another venue.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. If there are no other public comments at this time, then we'll hear some comments and recommendation from the superintendent, and then we'll bring it back to the table.
So I had the opportunity to visit Rain Shadow for their pizza, and I actually had to write my notes out because there's a lot of things flowing around. I actually do have a couple questions about teachers that was brought up in this discussion because that actually concerns me. So Toby, can you come speak to that? Because are teachers leaving? I know there's not a large number, but will you have teachers to actually provide quality instruction for students for the remainder of the year?
Yes, we actually have one additional person that's been hired at this juncture, and we did work very closely with a student teacher who received his license at the semester, essentially. So if, in fact, there is any concern there, we have some individuals that have been working closely with us through the year.
So how many teachers do you have on staff?
We currently have 5 full-time teachers.
Okay.
And our numbers are currently right around 100.
Okay, thank you. In saying that, I did have an opportunity to walk around with Vivina, right? Did I get it right? I just want to call her Nina. That was is she here today? Yeah, there you go, the back, hi. I'm going to share a little of your story, not all of it. We talked about how it crafted, but I believe through her adversity and sickness that she really willed herself to triumph. She talked about having a GPA that was considerably low. I'm not going to even go into it. And she's laughing back there because we know the true story. But to being on track to graduate this year at a 3.5. And she is simply resilient when she tells you her story about her struggle. And I'm sure, without a doubt, there are many stories like this at Rain Shadow because they are like a family. And if you walk through those doors, you feel that when the kids are talking and when the teachers are engaging, and even when the board there is engaging, because I had an opportunity to discuss some of that with them. So without question, I truly believe that Rain Shadow is a testament to not only a quality education and a family environment and extension. But with that being said, breaking up a family is difficult, emotional, it is stressful, it is hard, it is painful. And those are the things we discuss on the emotional side of the decision. And we know that, that's no secret. Then there's the side of the law, the NRS, which holds us responsible as a sponsor to look at a variety of things that were put up on the wall. And we know that since 2012, you have struggled. That's not a secret. In fact, we are at this point right now because last year we were at a point that looks similar to this. And to me, the real issue is how do we get off the roller coaster so that we're not in a board meeting having to make a hard decision for kids every year? Like either there has to be something where you become financially solvent, right? Or we have to look at what's happening, because we don't want to come back here every year and dig into your business. We understand the work that you do, but we do have a responsibility. So we have to balance emotion and feeling with what is required by law. That is a struggle for the trustees, and it is a struggle for me, because I have to make an assumption that based on everything you tell me, that kids are gonna receive a quality education. And if that doesn't happen for some reason, that's not good for us because we are the sponsor. And if it could happen, that's not bad for us if we go the other way. So there are all these things that we have to take into consideration. I actually believe in the work at Rain Shadow because I believe in Nina back there, right? I believe in her story. I believe in every kid who tells a story. I believe that every kid does not fit into comprehensive high school. I believe the system allows parents to make a choice for their child, right? I have to make a choice for 64,000 kids who come to a public school to serve. And then there are other choices afforded to kids that they get to go out to. Many charter schools sponsored either by the district or by the state. But I have to tell you that I do want the school to stay open through the end of the year. I actually do, because I think it's meaningful when you have a senior year that you finish at the school you started. But I also understand that come July, if something doesn't happen and you don't get the $1 billion, my staff's going to have to work hard, or your staff, to get kids in other institutions that support them. And that shouldn't happen in July, because I would be remiss in my duty to say that would be okay with me, but because we need to be fair to parents too. So I am hoping that when you renew for your charter, that you have a great plan such that we don't have to come back here and keep having these discussions, because they're painful. They're painful because we care about kids. We actually care about you. Like when I'm there, I'm feeling the love. But I also have to do my duty as the superintendent and look at what is required and what I have to share with the board. And they get to make that decision, but I have to go on record saying, as the soup, based on what I know. So I actually agree that we should allow you to continue with the charter. But look at if you have to renew, and that's 2 weeks, and that's a lot of work, right? If the money falls out the sky, praise Jesus, I'm happy. We don't have to come back here in 6 months, right? But if it doesn't, we have to be honest about what the alternative is, because that's not being fair to us. We have to be honest in the presentation.
Very well said. Very well said. Yes, Trustee Rosenberg. Thank you, Wilson.
I think this is what my parents used to call behaving like a grown-up. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit, but it is your responsibility, and it is our responsibility. However, that doesn't mean we have to be pessimistic. We can be optimistic. Now, if I can just get my printmaking people to use green instead of pink, we may have some money.
I would say this. I mean, it was a tremendous experience for me to visit Rain Shadow on Thursday, and probably for all of us that took the time to go do that. And I am appreciative of the comments of the board. I'm particularly appreciative of the leadership being demonstrated by our superintendent. I agree that every child does not fit into every environment, and there is absolutely a place in this community for Rain Shadow. I don't doubt that for a moment. And I believe even from last week when we first talked about this, 2 weeks ago, when we talked about this at this table, you heard I heard the support, the compassion, and also some pain in my colleagues' voices, because we have the students. We have the students that we have to keep in mind. So I would say I'm going to lend my support absolutely to option 3, because it seems like legally taking action is what it is that we need to do, because I would like to see Rain Shadow continue. I really would. I think there is a place for it, and I am absolutely hopeful that somebody that didn't come forward and won the Powerball is at Rain Shadow and can add that in, because I would love to see that happen. And what I will ask is this. I will ask that the passion that we are seeing and the commitment that we are seeing and the care and concern that we're seeing today and that we saw 2 weeks ago, that it continue beyond this. so that we don't have to be back here in 6 months, so that the students continue the hard work. I'm appreciative of the 19 out of 20 students being on track. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. So students, we need you to step up and do your part. Don't just come here and say it, show it. Board members, I met some tremendous board members on Thursday. We need your help too, because that is your fiduciary responsibility as a board, is to do that good work. And 2 board members have already used their own resources or contacts, said, hey, there may be other people that are interested. We need that from the board members of this institution as well, of Rain Shadow. So I will certainly lend my support, and I am hopeful that the work doesn't stop today, that it continues on, so that we can continue to do the work for all 64,000 plus kids in the district.
And before I make the motion, I did actually want to just echo, and I really appreciated the way the superintendent laid that out, because I think it's a very important message to those of you who have the fiduciary responsibility and obligation for the school. So I too, like President Taylor, encourage and challenge you all to bring back to us in the renewal process evidence that you are showing, you are moving forward on some of the performance, both financially and academically, that we have indicated in the past we had concerns about. So I say, to use my daughter's expression, it's on you. So bring it to us. We're open. We want to hear it. So I move that we allow Rain Shadow the opportunity to finish the school year and follow the charter renewal process without guarantee of renewal.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second, if we need a motion.
Okay, it's open for discussion.
President,
Yes.
just to make sure, because I think there might have been some confusion, that it's clear that when the contract ends, as of right now, the school closes unless it's renewed. Does it? Because I think some of the people in the community were a little confused by that, so I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
I think that's important too.
Thank you.
My understanding is that from the current contract agreement, that's clear.
That's our belief.
Right, which is why I understood Trustee Smith to indicate that we didn't necessarily need to do anything, because under that contract, as it currently exists, that is the case. So I'm not asking through this motion that we change anything about the current status quo, that we allow them to finish the school year under the current contract agreement and follow the charter renewal process.
And there has been a
That's my
second, there was a second to that motion. Is there additional discussion or legal interpretation that we need to move forward? Trustee Smith?
I would just like to offer a friendly amendment to that, because I want to soften it a little bit and make sure the message is sent the way that we want it to be sent. I might be contradictory to what Neil would advise me to do based off of that comment, but I would say without guarantee of renewal, with the possibility of renewal, right? It's really the same thing. We're just letting them know that we're not giving up faith, so that when they go out there and they're trying to find people to fund their school, right? I'm just putting the positive wording in there. I think without guarantee is kind of negative. Let's give them something to run with. So if you'll accept my amendment with the possibility of renewal.
That's for the motion maker and the seconder to accept that amendment.
Can I just can I reword my motion at this time?
Include the date, if you would.
The date.
The end of the contract date.
Okay. I move that we allow Rain Shadow the opportunity to finish the school year under the current contract agreement, which ends at midnight on June 30th of 2015, and follow the charter renewal. 2016, I apologize, 2016, and follow the charter renewal process to demonstrate their ability to move forward.
And his friendly amendment
I
asked
think I
for.
captured that with the way I
think
said
that
it.
works. It's uplifting.
Fine.
Okay, are you okay with that amendment? JJ, you got that? Trustee Frankel?
And follow the charter renewal process as all other charter schools do to demonstrate their performance going forward.
So is that seconded?
Here, second. Is there any other discussion from the board?
Before we take the vote, I just want to point out one kind of funny thing, but it's good for Rain Shadow. There's an extra day this year because February has 29 days. It's a leap year. So we have an extra day to figure it out before June 30th. If we continue.
So noted, Trustee Smith. Okay, there's a motion on the floor.
Sorry, Mom.
All those in favor of the motion as stated by Trustee Frankel signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? The motion is carried. Let the record show that it is unanimous. why don't we take a 15-minute break to allow the students an opportunity to celebrate and exit, and we can prepare to move forward. 15 minutes from now. Okay, let's get back into session, and we will continue with agenda item 6.04, presentation by staff and Dr. Sharon C. Tucker of the report prepared by WCSD regarding their recommendations concerning gifted and talented education in the district. This is for information and discussion only, and this is, I believe, your first time before the board for our new director of GT program. So, Sherry, please.
Thank you. I'll start for the record. Scott Bailey, Chief Academic Officer. Dr. Taylor.
Scott, sorry.
Yes, that's fine. Trustees, Superintendent Davis, Mr. Hood. Appreciate the opportunity tonight. We get to share a 9-month labor of love, and that is we wanted to take the GT program from good to great, but without knowing where we needed to go, we were shooting at a moving target. So we enlisted the support of Dr. Sharon Tucker, WCSD, to assist us in that deep dive. She interviewed a lot of folks and dug into a lot of paperwork to make some recommendations, which you'll see this evening. Specifically, in late May, hence the 9-month labor, 2015, the Washoe County School District contracted with WCSD to prepare a report on the district's program for students with gifts and talents. The report will serve as a springboard in developing a long-term plan going forward for program improvement. So we think of this as part of our continuous improvement initiative. The district's focus is to learn how well the current programming is as compared to the national standards. Our national standards that we did the comparison to are the National Association for Gifted Children Standards, NAGC, which are highly touted across the nation as a pinnacle of performance. Tonight you will see a condensed version of the report through findings and recommendations. Hopefully you've all had a chance to look at the full report, but again, tonight consolidated down to findings and recommendations. I'll now turn it over to Dr. Tucker.
Thank you. I'm Sharon Tucker from WCSD. It's nice to be with you tonight. Good to see you, Superintendent Davis, President Taylor, members of the board. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on the interviews, but I do want to make note that the methodology section of the report can be found more completely in pages 49 through 56. We've highlighted the interviews because even though this was a mixed methods methodology on this report, the interviews did carry the day, so to say. The other things that we looked at were documents and from the gifted department and from the district, and we looked at curriculum documents, we looked at interoffice memorandum, we did research studies, did a literature review of gifted education and the research literature on giftedness, and I spent a lot of time meeting with people. So, but the interviews were the bulk of the information as they were looked at in relationship to the NAGC standards. So just so you know how those interviews were laid out, we talked to 123 people, and they represented a range of stakeholders. 11 of the people were interviewed individually, and 112 participated in focus groups. And the focus group sizes ranged from 3 to 15. There was no differentiation in who was interviewed individually as opposed to in a group. It had to do with their scheduling concerns. And you can see the stakeholder groups, they included students and parents and principals and office staff. We had 115 questions, and of course no one had to go through 115 questions. They were broken down into the questions that related to the 6 standards and into groups that related to parents, related to students, and then cross-indexed, and those were the analysis. The interview protocols that we used were pre-coded to correlate with the NAGC standards and subcomponent letters, and the interview groups lasted 50 minutes. The interview protocol itself and examples and what we used as the opening statements will be found in the methodology section. Okay, the standards themselves are on the next PowerPoint. And these standards have been a long time in the making. They were first put together by NAGC, which is a national organization comprised of gifted educators and college professors, public school people, private school people, and it is now a not-profit and pretty well seen as sort of the caretaker of gifted education, and they're a proponent for gifted education, but they really work hard to work with others in the field and to do lots of research, and they do professional development. They are not associated with WestEd, so there's no collusion here, so you know that. The 6 standards are very broad areas: learning and development, assessment, curriculum and instruction, learning environments, programming, and professional development. And from pages 12 to 37 in this report, we took each of the standards and we broke them out in this way. First gave you a verbatim definition of the standard, that in NAGC's words. And then we wrote an analysis in WestEd's terminology and brought out some things that maybe were sort of hidden in their standards. It was my opinion as I read the NAGC standards that they weren't quite as forthright as they needed to be. That they were, you know how education can get a little jargony? One of my pet peeves. So I wanted to give you and the public here and the educators, and what's so troublesome to me is sometimes even educators don't understand. You know, I think that's pretty bad. We ask people to implement things and we're not all clear on what they mean. So we wrote them in a way that would make them literate and professional, but nothing hidden, okay? Then there are 2 bulleted lists that are behind each standard. One of the lists says how your program, your gifted program, aligns with the particular standard. And then another list that says ways in which it doesn't particularly align, and what Mr. Bailey wanted us to call opportunities for improvement. And then I think the richest part of this is that when we had either an improvement area or a strength area, we tried to back it up where it was relevant and where it was helpful and wasn't hurtful but was candid, with quotes from actual interviewees. And it makes it real, and things that could be said in a way by an academic like me or a researcher like I am in this case somehow is more meaningful when said by a parent in real terms. And if you've had a chance to read it, I think you'll know exactly what I mean. Okay, we did, however, not do names or do anything that gave away any anonymous. What was that last little syllable's getting me there? Okay, and then finally, a closing set of primary findings and alignment-related recommendations, the most important ones, which is, as I've explained to Mr. Bailey and to Mrs. DiMartino, are certainly free to have you all and your parent group look at them, and maybe you're going to want a different set of recommendations. I think this kind of thing is contextual, but as I looked at it as an educator with almost 47 years of experience, these are the ones that I thought would be the most leverage. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is I'm going to call out the findings, and they'll be up on the board. And then our gifted person, and I mean that sincerely, not just as a title, but as a characteristic, will do the recommendations. So, learning and development. The current program places emphasis on the cognitive domain, and celebrates academic achievement, and that's one of the strengths of the program.
With our recommendation, what we want to do is look at all of the other domains, the affective domain, the talents, to round out the giftedness and talent in our programming.
Okay, the next finding about the program under this standard is that it does not include systematic differentiation that is based on discovering and tracking student interests and goals. So what I mean by that is that the students come in to a program, their learning and development program, the program doesn't spend enough time finding out what makes you unique, what are you particularly interested in, how have you changed from the 3rd grade to the 7th grade in what you want to be when you grow up. And so it needs to develop a system that allows it to differentiate curriculum based on that.
So what we're going to look at is having interest inventories and some type of record keeping that's going to track students throughout their career and get them ready for college and those careers that they would like to participate in. And when we have these type of inventories, it will be easier for us to get them on the right path for success.
Another major finding under the learning and development standard is that NAGC recommends that gifted students have within their program interventions when they have academic and behavior challenges that surface as individual students, just like any other student does. And there is a protocol for this within the gifted program, but through our research, it was discovered that the people at the schools that work with these children and young adults feel that it's not a well-supported protocol, and the interventions that are offered often come too late.
So what we are doing is we have reached out to Trish Schaefer, and we want to have our coordinators become trainers of trainers with the social and emotional and piggyback off of what the district is already doing, but have a second component for gifted that uses the stuff that is already used in our district, but take it to another level for the gifted student.
The second standard has to do with assessment. And the assessment standard in NAGC covers 3 areas. One area is how do you identify students who are gifted and talented. A second area is how do you evaluate the program in gifted and talented. And the third area is how do we assess students, are they learning in the program? So this first finding has to do with identification of students. The identification process for gifted and talented students in the district is not comprehensive enough. It's heavily weighted toward the cognitive domain and academic ability, and giftedness is more than that. Research tells us, and I did a research review for you. It's a special little piece called Box. It's in what we call West Ed when we do a research report, and it's not about your district, but it's about looking at the research on a topic. We put it in what we call a box, and I think it's page 10, and it talks about how much we have learned since the Terman days and the Stanford Binet and those kids, and how much we've learned. And so we really need to begin to look beyond the cognitive and just the academic. There is more to giftedness than that. And your program is not identifying a broad enough range of giftedness.
So hopefully, if we could create a team that has the English language learners on their department, disabilities, assessment, language arts, math, psychologists, counselors, we can turn around our assessment and make it more comprehensive to meet the needs of all the children, as we're looking at not only the cognitive, but other domains as well.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Is there an instrument for that? How do you, and I know you get the expertise from the people in all the areas. Maybe you may know this Dr. Tucker. Is there an instrument that you use to assess that or to identify that?
Well, one thing that isn't, is spelled out in the report, and I think it's something that you as a board and certainly the department needs to look at, it's highly recommended, is at a policy level, you need to decide what does it mean to be gifted in your community, in your context.
Okay.
That's a very challenging question.
That's why we.
And I'm going to talk a little bit at the end, if we have time, about the problem with proportionality.
Okay, is that in the box?
And that's in the last, it's outside the standards, but it's a central issue for your district, and it's a central issue in America.
Yes, it is. Yes. Okay.
Okay, the second standard is also about identification, but it crosses other things, and that is that there's a general lack of understanding and clear communication about parents, teachers, principals, about how students are identified for gifted in the district. It's just not really clear to people, and a lot of misconception, and I think in processes, a lack of transparency, clearly.
And currently, we are working on developing that handbook and making sure all of these policies and procedures are clear to all stakeholders, not just the department. Everybody needs to be aware of how we do assessment in the gifted program.
Trustee Mayor?
Oh, sorry.
Question on how you're developing a handbook.
Okay, what I've done right now is each of my department heads, my coordinators, I have challenged them to start writing what procedures are involved for their job. Once we get that, we will then move forward with getting input from all of the teachers, the principals, and bringing it to all of the stakeholders that it needs to go through and the right procedure for our district before we actually publish that document. But I'm starting right now with all of my coordinators to write down everything that is done in our department because we do not have those procedures in place at this time.
They've never been developed, or you just haven't adopted
They've
them?
been developed, but they're not being followed. They have changed over time, so we want to make sure that all of that gets done.
And let me just add, I think as a district, we are looking at a variety of departments. If you look at special ed, if you look at GT, updating our policies and manuals, especially for principals too, as a reference guide. So I think it's one of those things as the district grows, something gets lost, but we are trying to bring all these documents back so there's a point of reference for anyone if they have questions regarding our specialty areas.
Mm-hmm.
The next finding has to do with assessment and speaking to how are we monitoring that students are learning. And there is no system for, it's just assumed these kids are smart, they must be mastering the standards that they're supposed to be mastering grade by grade, but I'm sure the teachers are keeping track year by year, but I didn't find a system that really showed that that information is passed on, the strengths, the weaknesses, and that also needs to be done for developing, for their interest and passed on year to year, and their affective development, their social and emotional development, their leadership development. There's one of my favorite quotes in there is, I think it's a parent who said it, I'm not sure, but said, you know, people think that these kids are smart, they'll do just fine, that being smart is good enough. But it's not good enough. There's so much more to being successful. So this speaks to that.
Okay, so the recommendation is to create an individual record of the students' strengths, areas that we want to develop, their interest surveys, and continue to support those students and share with the families on an annual basis what those goals are for the students.
Don't we used to have portfolios on each kid that started in kindergarten and they fill them in. don't do those anymore? There's no portfolio following a kid through school?
For the record, Scott Bailey, I do not believe that to be a common expectation across all schools currently. We do have academic personalized plans for many of our students.
But not all?
Not all.
Because when I was, well,
And the department submitted over 200 documents to me that I personally reviewed, and I did not see any student portfolios in that collection. So, the last finding has to do with evaluation, and I don't want to say that the program has not been evaluated, because I did find little bits and pieces of things like scraps of paper that had what the kids who had been in accelerated math did in terms of grade point average versus kids who weren't in accelerated math. And I found how many students were in certain programs and that kind of thing. And I found a lot of informal surveys and that kind of thing, but they weren't aggregated, they weren't measured against prior years. So what I've recommended here is that the program needs to, well, I should say what she'll say, but I'm just saying, there needs to be formal evaluation of the program as a whole. And I didn't find formal evaluation of the program as a whole. I didn't find formal evaluation of the components of the program. I didn't find any cause and effect evaluation, so that if you are saying to the program, here's $500,000 for technology, what is it supposed to produce? So there's none of that kind of thing, and I think that's an area that needs to be addressed. Now.
Okay, so the recommendation now is within our department, every year look at all of the components. Every 2 years, have the Office of Accountability look at our department, and every 3 years, have an outside source give us their feedback on how we are progressing with our goals.
boy, this sounds like you're going to have to do everything again. You're going to have to start from ground zero and redevelop everything. You know,
We're up to the task. We're excited about it.
it's a hard task.
It's a hard task, but it's a good task, and it's doable.
She doesn't know it.
Oh, okay.
You just hired me.
It just,
Don't scare me away.
everything's we develop, we're going to look at this,
Yes.
we're going to do this.
Yeah.
What's the starting point?
The starting point was the West Ed report, taking all of their findings and moving forward on each of their recommendations, which we have already started to do, and to get a committee together to help us take it to the next step.
So each of these, you're going to break up into committees.
We're going to have a
Not
committee,
one committee.
one giant committee, but at the same token, each one of these will be addressed in the committee to move us forward.
If I could just add to that, Scott Bailey, for the record, Vice President Mayer will actually be joining forces with Student Support Services under a common task, and that is to build plans. We have the Student Support Services report. We also have the GT report. They just happen to come in about the same time. So we've already been sitting down, drafting an RFP so that we can leverage resources in building off these strong foundations.
Standard, I'm sorry.
I just have one question. Maybe I should ask it later, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. So with everything that needs to be done, how long until you get it done? Because it kind of sounds like whatever we had died 5 or 10 years ago, and now we're rebirthing a new program, and you have nothing really to start from to get to. So when can we finish this?
Each component is going to take a little bit of a different timeline. We are starting with disproportionality first, which we have not even addressed yet. That is critical nationwide. So each component will be a different timeline, but we have already saw success in some areas in just the short amount of time West Ed report has come out. in my opinion, I have a 5-year plan that I want to make sure that not only do we address everything in West Ed within 5 years, we have now exceeded that, and we have a program that has talents involved in it, and we're going to be a district that people are going to be looking at for gifted.
In 6 years.
5.
Or 5 to finish, 6 to look back.
Well, let me just interject. I think we have to honor the work that has been done in
Yes.
GT previously.
Yes.
We have done some phenomenal work with our previous GT department and GTAC. And when you look at what's happening across the state of Nevada
Yes.
and compare the services that we provide to students compared to other districts, we are at the forefront. And when we look at the work that we're doing, we are a school district of continuous school improvement, and the reason why we're having this is we know what we had was good. Now, how do we get to great? And so I think in talking about she has a lot of work to do, there's been some good work done. I think
Yes.
GTAC and Lisa Riggs did a lot of phenomenal things, and I don't want to take away from that work that they've already done, but how do we continue to expand giftedness as we look at what we believe for all our kids in our district? So I just wanted to be clear that it's not like there was some magic going on. We're just going to create more magic.
Trustee Rosenberg?
One of the first things you learn in education, it never ends.
No.
It keeps on going.
Right.
That's what you do. You never have enough time because something gets in the way. So what we really need is someone that's willing to go through that. I stopped years ago.
Well, moving on to Standard 3, here's a very good example of what Superintendent Davis just said. The GATE curriculum and the instructional strategies that are used in the current program are advanced and conceptually challenging. The curriculum planning and the instructional strategies do not place an adequate emphasis on diversity or culturally responsive instructional practices, or enough on multicultural and diverse society, but that's something that probably the whole district needs to work on. But as I said to the leadership group, most GATE programs that we look at are just give kids more of the same work that kids in general ed get. And your curriculum is good, it's rigorous, and it's not just piling on more work and making the kids hate school. So, that's a really good example that Superintendent Davis get, is that you're in good shape there. So you're not going to start from scratch. You've got many good places, points of leverage to go to excellence. Yeah.
So with that recommendation is to take our current curriculum and look at the diverse learners and modify it and replace it if necessary to strengthen that area.
The next one about curriculum instruction is that there's a mixed view of GATE instruction. Most people think that it's actually very good. The parents of the GATE students certainly think it's very good. They see that they believe it incorporates research-based strategies and that the curriculum is quality and the materials are quality. Some of those, mostly not parents, but more instructional people in the schools, think that, well, it could be better. So that's fine. And because there's been so much money poured into this as opposed to what's available to general ed, this could be a little bit of just need to share the wealth a little bit and the program has been seen as so siloed and not really connecting with the general ed program that I think it's led to maybe some of this, they've just got good kids and a lot of money. But my general sense of it, even though I didn't get into the classroom, that wasn't part of the scope of work, is that the instruction in the GATE program is actually very good, and I think that most people believe it is. But there is an undercurrent that it could be better. Okay. And what couldn't be better, right? Instruction can always be better.
Yeah. And to help with that, we have shifted site principals to be the evaluators of the GT teachers, because they are in the building, they see everything that is going on. So the department is in charge of the evaluations for the specialists that are at multiple schools. But when a specialist is at a one site location, the site principals are now going to do evaluations.
When did that, oh, excuse me, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, President Mader. And one of the questions I have about this, and I know we have a standard on professional development that's coming up, so that's one of the questions I have, because not all site principals, as with the special ed and children with disabilities, they require training and development on that as well, and how to evaluate the special ed teachers. I think one of the questions I have is the professional development for the principals who may not be as familiar with the GATE curriculum and the
Yes.
Gifted Talent curriculum.
And so we have sent them a document that what to look for in the classroom of a GT classroom, and we have also sent out principals the opportunity to work with us to do walkthroughs so that they can learn what they should be looking for in a GT classroom.
Okay, and I'd just like to add, Scott went out and had meetings with principals, GT teachers, and there was a lot of rumbling in the system about this. And I'm speaking from the voice of a principal owning the staff, and there were some issues on both sides, and it could be a philosophy issue, but we believe that if principals are supervising special ed teachers in the building, what would make GT different from the staff? And there were some things that were bubbling up. And so I think just to commend Scott on his work and just getting out there and having discussions, so it wasn't like we just snatched something away. Like, we really wanted to see what was needed, and as a result of that, part of it was the inclusion of professional development and how we can make school teams more cohesive and not have any group or particular teacher sit on an island and feel like, well, I don't report to the principal, I report to them. And there were some disconnects, but I think part of the work is figuring out what's not working in our system, what is working, and finding solutions for students.
Trustee Mayor.
You know, when did this happen? Because that's one of the biggest complaints I get when I go out to the schools, is that gifted programs down at the end of C Hall, and they don't go to the math meeting, although they're a math teacher. They don't go to the English meeting. They're not integrated into even the duty schedule. When did this change? It must have been just recently.
It was just recently. It was this school year, the beginning of this school year.
It started this school year?
Yeah, that was part of the work we did this summer with Scott. And Scott, you can speak to the work groups you had to have this. Like, this has been some work that has been done previous to even this West Ed coming in and looking at it. That had been one of the issues the board brought to me, and we looked at how we could come to solutions. So if you just want to speak to the work you've done with that so we understand.
Scott Bailey, Chief Academic Officer. Appreciate the comments. Superintendent Davis. I did go on a road tour beginning of the school year and heard it straight from the teachers what they thought the program needs were. Visited 9 sites, I think it was, 1 week. Spent almost 50 minutes to an hour with each group of teachers. That was during the lull period, if you will, between directors. We hired a director soon thereafter. I believe he reported October 1, 2015. So that's when I did my due diligence, and then we worked with OSP to make it so. Met with the site administrators involved. So that action took place approximately September. And then I had a small work group following that action, whereas teachers and at least a middle school principal were involved in building a bridge or an attributes document that linked the National Association for Gifted Children standards to our current professional development system, or teacher evaluation system in this case.
You know, and you did this in every school, because I'm getting, I go to a school and the principal says, oh, I didn't even get any input into hiring that teacher.
This action actually pertains, Scott Bailey again for the record, to SWAS GT magnets.
Like at Dilworth?
All SWAS programs and GT magnets, absolutely.
So I think what you have to know is we kind of run a variation of programs when we look at itinerants, right? And so when we talk about the itinerants, just because they service different schools, then GT staff actually helps. Our goal is that there's a collaboration on the evaluation, but when you look at the teacher that actually, for lack of better words, belong to the school site, that principal actually gives the evaluation. So just so there's a point of clarification. So if you're looking at an itinerant teacher that might service 3 different schools, because of that, there has to be collaboration versus the one who it is their home school and that's where they are the whole day. They actually belong to the principal.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
It does.
Well, it isn't happening. And I'll
Okay.
talk-
Well, it isn't happening all over.
Well, it isn't happening in a lot of places.
All right.
We'll make it happen, won't we?
Yes, we will.
Please, Dr. Tucker.
Okay, thank you. Well, actually, here we are at the next finding, which is about the GATE program as an island or a silo again, and this time the example is the mathematics program. And there's just a whole lot of consternation. This is mostly at the secondary level because the gifted program has an accelerated math program, which actually the research is quite positive on acceleration for gifted students. It's also very positive for remedial students. So there could be a way here to have a win-win. The point is that people need to get together and work these things out instead of, just kind of being in their own world. And prior to Sherry, that was a major problem. There was no collaboration between the gifted department in terms of curriculum and instructional matters. And honestly, people blamed it on the gifted department, but it looks like it went on so long that maybe everybody should just drop their hands and say, let's try again now that you've got a new start.
So we've reached out already to other departments, not only the math department. We're working with CNI, working with their coordinators as well to look at curriculum, to align it with the school district, but to get it on the pathway that our gifted kids need. With this, yes, with curriculum, we're also working with equity and diversity. We are working with 21st century. I have reached out to a bunch of different departments so that we can be on the same page as the district, so that we are no longer on that silo, on that island by ourselves.
Okay, we're moving to the 4th standard, which NAGC calls learning environments. I think that we probably think of it more as school climate, school environment, and so it does speak a lot to English learners and to students who come from diversity, gender, those kinds of things. So you'll see some multilingual issues in here too. So what we used here, thanks to Ben Hayes and the Accountability Department, was the climate survey, and we did not have any disaggregated data for the gifted students, but nothing in the interviews, and we interviewed students, led us to believe that anything was amiss there. The students there felt safe. And your climate survey for this district as a whole looks very good in terms of that. And so we just, kind of extended it out and said that it looks like the students as a whole, and therefore the gifted students, that their teachers maintain high expectations for them, and they provide them feedback, and they believe that if they work hard, they can do better. However, multilingualism is not promoted in classrooms or at schools or in the district, and there is not a program in the district that systematically assists second language students to learn to maintain their home language or even to develop it, or which might be something you want to look at. It's part of the gifted standards that to promote multilingualism.
Really, we're looking at working with the second language department and getting multilingualism into our classrooms for the gifted kids as well as other students. That is in the talking stage at this point.
Okay. And it's not just Spanish.
Well, my question was going to be basically the how, because I imagine that one of the challenges is finding teachers who are certified to teach
Yes.
the gifted and talented and are also bilingual or multilingual in different
Yes.
languages. So is that part of the challenge?
That is part of the challenge.
Very smart.
Is Dr. Tucker, if I may, is there research that backs up the value and that from a gifted and talented student, them being proficient in 2 languages, the most is there?
There is so much research even for whoever's regular student, but all students. Being multilingual actually improves intelligence. It does. Yes. The earlier they begin, the better. Yeah.
Thank you. I thought there was.
Standard 4, still on learning environment. The literature, the art, the history, the values, all the other things of many different cultures needs a larger place in the curriculum. And the development of personal and social responsibility and leadership skills needs a larger place in the program. It's not systematically included, not just in the curriculum, but it's sort of in the daily life of the classroom and the school.
So the recommendation is to go with middle and high school, but Dr. Tucker, we're going to bring that down to elementary too, because I see the benefit of community service requirement and then debriefing about that and how did we impact our community here in Washoe.
Okay, technology falls under learning environment because this is interesting in the NAGC standards. Technology is, you would think, well, why isn't that in curriculum, or why isn't that? Because technology should be part of the school and the classroom environment. It's part of the air we breathe, okay? And technology has moved from being a teaching tool to just being a learning tool. And that's not happening in the gifted program the way it should be happening. So the way that, from the standards that we stated, it's not being maximized in the gifted classes for collaboration, for innovation, and for communication. It's being used, and it's being used a lot, but it's being used as a teaching tool. So our recommendation is...
Okay, we are going to connect with the Division of 21st Century. I actually have a meeting with Robert next week to see how we can use the money from SB 515 with technology and take it to another level for our gifted students.
Neat. Okay, are you still with me? What a good board this is. Why wasn't I this lucky? But anyway. Programming. Programming speaks to the way the program is organized. So the way students are placed and what goes on there and why you have a magnet and are they integrated with other students, that kind of thing. So the first finding in programming is that, and here's another really very positive thing, is that the programming for the academics and the cognitive programming is research-based. On the whole, it is a very well-developed program. It emphasizes critical and creative thinking skills. It employs problem-solving models. It spends a lot of time and energy in building independence and investigation. And on the whole, the academic growth for the students in the gifted program is commensurate with their aptitude.
So the recommendation is to continue on that path and also to get core groups together to make sure all of the disciplines match and also to get the students' individual results on an annual basis with their families.
The next finding is just redundant, but it's part of the programming standards. The NAGC is very strong on this idea of collaboration because it's their philosophy that the whole school district and everyone in a school, it takes everyone collaborating to make any single program and especially a gifted program the best it can be.
Yeah. And I think we've already shared how many different departments we are collaborating with at this moment to get this job done.
This is a repeat, but it falls under the standard. I think we've covered it.
Okay. And we're working on that handbook to make sure that policies and procedures get out to all stakeholders.
I do want to point out something in the recommendation because I know that Superintendent Davis believes this really strongly and Mr. Bigley too. I think just about somewhat like the jargon comment, sometimes policies are not student-centered. See the recommendations, student-centered, they're based on what's convenient for adults. And that student-centered policies and procedures have to be the answer. So you have things like, we just identify kids once a year because we don't like to move people around. So
Exactly.
sometimes children are sitting a year and a half waiting.
Or more.
I mean, we just can't do things like that.
No.
So keep an eye on that one, okay? Okay, so standard 5 in program, there's no recognition of students with gifts and talents in the arts.
So we're going to try to add that component to it. Okay?
Great.
Good stuff.
Standard 5 programming. The GATE parents have been the focus of the GTAC. They've been the focus of the being advocates for the program, and sometimes it's been a barrier, but the program probably wouldn't be where it is without them. So I think they deserve credit for that, and I think it's great that they're becoming really involved in it and understanding how they can be positively involved.
We have amazing parents in the GT family, and I want you to know that I did reach out to all of the presidents in my GTAC, GT Connect, GT Booster, to let them know about this report, to let them share their concerns with me. So that has already been done, and they were very receptive, and they're like, this is exactly what we were trying to get and to move everything forward. So they were very pleased with everything in the report. I have posted that on our GATE website as well, and I have asked GTAC to please allow me time at the February meeting to present this, excuse me, this entire findings to them as well.
Okay, professional development. There's, believe it or not, even though the department said they were using his NAGC standards, they really hadn't spent a lot of time in really dissecting them and looking at them, and they're very challenging standards. So that one of our findings is that needs to be done.
Okay, and so we are currently working on workshops that will help address the NAGC standards, and for next year to make sure all stakeholders understand our standards for the gifted program and get the training that they need for each of those components.
The next finding is that the GATE program has invested a lot in professional development, and that's great to see a program do that. That's another very strong area. Sometimes this speaks to your issue that sometimes the professional development for gifted and talented is taking precedent over professional development at the regular school site, and so we've asked that that be dealt with.
Yep. So we're looking at making sure that there's no conflict with the school site building and our GT program professional developments as well.
The other standard that the gifted and talented program meets well is that they have a yearly professional development focus, and they are flexible in their settings, and they're flexible in the types of opportunities they offer.
And so as we're going ahead with professional development, we want to make sure not only does it help our department, but it also helps all departments with what we have, so it's a mutual respect and a mutual interest.
The last finding under professional development is that there's been too little attention paid to eliminating the disproportionality in GATE and how to identify students from underrepresented groups. Professional development can help with this, but it's just not a teacher problem. It needs to include administrators and curriculum staff as well.
And there's your
recommendation.
Okay. All right, so what we're going to recommend is that we look at our curriculum materials, have that professional development so that we can recognize characteristics of giftedness and talents in the underrepresented population.
Okay, this is the part that is not in the NAG standards. They talk more about diversity, and if you read the report, there's a whole section on the opportunity gap, an opportunity gap a missed opportunity in Washoe, and it's based on the bestseller, Harvard bestseller, that I'd like you to take a look at when you have more time. I'd be glad to come back and discuss it with you. But what you have here is something that Ben Hayes did for us. And you have on the vertical axis the percent of students that are participating in gifted and talented programs. And on the horizontal axis, you have the subgroups, okay? The three colors represent the years. The blue is 13-14. The beigey color is 14-15, and the orange is 15-16. So let's take Hispanic students. They're the third group over. So you can see that they haven't yet reached the 20% mark in participation. Now, if you move your finger on up, if they were proportionally represented in the gifted program, see those three little dotted lines? Yeah. That's where they should be. Now, the groups that are overrepresented are white students. So they're overrepresented by the three dots all the way up to the top. Multiracial students are overrepresented. So you can see what this looks like. Asian students are overrepresented. Now, I don't know what it's like in your communities, but the communities that I've served in, when you start saying this to people, we need more Hispanic kids, we need more African American kids, that people don't want to think of kids that way. So I got to thinking. And this Putnam book helped me think about it, because he talks about the crisis in America really being about income disparity, and how income disparity used to be just in some racial and ethnic groups, but it's now cut across all.
Yeah.
So I got to looking at this last group you have over here, this free and reduced lunch group.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see that they're underrepresented too? But look how many of them are participating. 921 kids.
Yeah.
Are participating in the gifted program. So one of my recommendations to you that's in the report, and the report on disproportionality begins on page 41. I have several ideas about this, but my main one is, let's just look at who these 921 kids are. Now, some of these kids are going to be college students' kids. And so that's what you call situational poverty. They're probably getting free and reduced lunch because they're studying, two parents are in a PhD program. But if these kids are generational poverty kids, then let's find out who they are, why are they successful, what has your system done to make them successful. You're going to find a lot of kids here that are successful because of what you've done. So let's study them. Let's find out what made them successful. Let's try to learn from their success instead of looking at failure. So that's one suggestion that I have. The other suggestions I have are just some simple things that I did. Are there any comments or questions about that as a strategy? That's one suggestion I have about disproportionality. Another suggestion I have about disproportionality is to look at the research and the scholarship. So what do we know? We know that when we're identifying younger kids, we have a better chance of identifying underrepresented kids, poor kids. Because why? They live in areas where they're likely to go to poorer schools. If we catch them early, then they're not the victims of being bored and not being okay. So we know that earlier is better, so we do that. We know that just allowing parents to say, please test my kid, works really great for white kids. It does not work well for poor children. Their parents don't have time. Your application procedure asks parents to write an essay about their children. A mother who's working 4 part-time jobs at $10 an hour doesn't have time. We do that. So you have put in your procedures all kinds of barriers to working class families that are just not fair. I don't think anybody meant to do it, but they aren't thinking. So you need to, I put in here all kinds of these little things that lots of study people have done. So that's the second thing, is look at your procedures and say, is this a barrier to somebody who's a single mother with 4 kids working 4 part-time jobs? And in your procedures, look that way. And look at what the scholarship and it says when you should identify kids. Another thing that I've asked you to look at a talent magnet. A talent magnet you can take in a whole range of kids. White kids, African American kids, Hispanic kids, all kinds of kids. A Spanish language dual immersion. I'm telling you, once you get these dual immersion programs going, you'll have trouble keeping identified gate kids out of them. I've done these, and then we have to say, wait a minute, we've got to get some Hispanic kids in the program, because parents love bilingual programs, they really do. But you have to structure this so that you're serving the Hispanic gifted kids. So that's another thing to do, and I've given you some resources from that. You don't have to use these cognitive tests. I don't know why your procedure tells the parents that you have to use a cognitive test, but nothing in the law. Scott's going to check that I'm right or wrong, but you can use an academic. You don't have to use the test that they say that you do. I looked in that. The other thing is that there's all kinds of developing where you can find kids in younger ages. You can identify 4-year-olds as gifted and talented and collect full ADA. I know you don't have space for it, but that's something to think about in the future. So there is a lot you can do to eliminate this disproportionality issue. But these are long-term fixes. They're going to fit into your program. Maybe they aren't. I'm not sure. But I have done a lot of research on this, and mostly they're just kind of, thinking things. I don't know what's right for you. I've just done my best to invest myself in finding you the most answers I can, and I loved working here, loved working on this problem, loved working with your people, and I just wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tucker.
I want to say, for the record, Scott Bailey, enjoyed working with Dr. Tucker and appreciate everything that you've brought us. As Superintendent Davis said, to get from good to great is going to take a lot of effort, but we have a lot of information to work with to get us there. I appreciate the information.
Could I ask a question, Madam Chair?
Please, go ahead.
Do we take the top 2% or the top 4% into the gifted talented program? I read a lot of magazines that's a big debate. If you take the top 2% or the top 4.
It technically should be about the top 1% for gifted. We are a little bit higher than that here at this point in time.
What do we take?
But you don't have to use that measure at all. That's not in the law.
Okay.
You think it is in the law?
No, it's not. No, it's
in
not.
the
No.
law.
No.
As a board, you can determine your own criteria.
What do we take?
I'm sorry, I don't know the exact number right now, but I can get that number for you.
I'd like to see it because there's a lot of research and magazines and so forth that are saying that you shouldn't go below the 2%.
So I think that in the past, we've had some programs implemented to initiate, to give exposure to kids that drop below a particular percentage. As you know, when we rolled out our elementary program of AAP, did I get that wrong? It's getting late.
AAP, you got it.
Okay, whew, it's not too late then. We looked at some different numbers to give exposure, and that was for schools to sign up with. So when some of the confusion came from, are those kids truly gifted kids, and what we looked at, and we're looking at, we did not expand on those programs this year at all. No. We didn't. We were moving to a more gifted model, and enrichment should be afforded to all kids as far as I'm concerned. Like, you don't have to be gifted to get enrichment because there are specialty areas in kids, but you have to honor kids who are highly gifted too, right, and move them along the spectrum. So I think as part of this work that we are doing with looking at what we have done well as a district with GT and how we're going to move forward to do even better things for gifted kids. And when we look at kids across the spectrum, there's a collaboration with special education, ELL, all these departments, and just instruction in general. Like, I think when I was a classroom teacher, it was about affording all kids an opportunity depending on where they were and where they needed to be moved. So I want to thank you for your work. I know when we had our sit down with LT, I was kind of a booger bear about some things when it came to disproportionality. But we have to ask the tough questions to get to a better place, right? And we know that in our district, we have to look at culturally responsive practices and what that looks like with the lens, with the work we do. And we do sometimes forget that we argue about black and brown kids, but we forget poor kids. When we talk about poor, it does not discriminate against color or disability, right? And we know that we have our babies in Sun Valley that struggle, and so we want to afford kids every opportunity. And so I think some of the work that's happening here, some of the work that's happening with our ELL, when we look at special education, as we go out for our RFP for implementation, because it's one thing to get the data and see where you are, then there's another thing to have a plan of action that we progress monitor and look at data and see how effective we are, which would be some of our next steps with not just GT, but as we look at special education also. So just want to thank you and say to Cheryl, thank you for, even though you're from Vegas, is what John told me. Thank you for coming, because I think there's a lot of work that has been great, but you bring a fresh set of eyes, right? And sometimes you need that, and I know that it seems like it's going to be a Herculean effort to get this done, but there's a lot of support mechanism to make this a team effort by the district to move our kids every child by name and face to graduation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
Go ahead. All right, if you insist. I've been in the game for a long time, like Dr. Tucker. I've always asked the same question at orientation meetings and things like that. And you got 250 kids sitting in front of you, and you want them to participate. So you ask a version of the "what do you want to be when you grow up?" question, and you know the answers that you always get. A couple of weeks ago, I asked that question, and there was one young man sitting in front of me who was totally bored with the whole situation. He didn't want any part of it. He just wanted to get the hell out. And I should have left him alone. I didn't. And I said to him, come on, you haven't said a damn thing. What do you want to be when you grow up? He gave me the best answer I have ever had. He said, happy. It's changed the way I'm thinking of things these days.
Good for him.
Trustee Rosario.
Dr. Tucker, you are a breath of fresh air. And I appreciate your hard work on this and your compassion, but also your ability to be so frank with what some of the challenges are and the tips that you gave us. Very, very much appreciated.
Thank you.
And welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. You, along with Superintendent Davis and Mr. Bailey back here, this is another tall order, but I am, GT and special education have needed they've done a tremendous job, but they have not quite been where they needed to be. And I have heard that from the parents. So I'm so excited to see this freshness and new energy put into it. You know, I'm anxious to hear from the parents. You know, we're strongly connected to our GT parents, so I think they'll be very pleased and excited with this. But just your energy and your openness and the integration throughout the entire district, it feels really good to me. So I think this is very, very positive and a move in the right direction. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And please stay. You're welcome to stay longer if you like.
Thank you.
Yes, like to add that.
Trustee Smith is going to say that. You know that.
Thank you
Well,
very
we
much.
do just want to thank you. I don't want to repeat what Trustee Ricciardo said. I think she coined it very nicely. We are excited about the direction and your leadership, and thank you for your outside view to challenge us on some of the gaps that we have to close. So we're excited moving forward. Great hire, Mr. Bailey. Thank you so much.
President.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I've sat through a lot of board meetings, and I'm very impressed with this board. And you've run a very nice meeting. I was a superintendent for 13 years, so. Yeah. So.
Well, thank you. Come back and see us anytime.
Very nicely done.
Thank you, colleagues.
As long as I look as cute as I do now.
Okay. Right, huh?
Sit on the beach.
Thank you, Kyle.
All right, now we're on to agenda item 6.03. Consideration of approval to purchase K-5 mathematics instructional materials for approximately $3.5 million. This is for a possible action. I don't have any public comment cards on this, so we will be in the capable hands once again of Mr. Bailey and Kendra Fox. Thank you.
Hello again. Scott Bailey for the record, Chief Academic Officer. We're here to present to you a recommendation to purchase math textbooks, kindergarten through 5th grade, another great labor of love. I'd like to recognize the persons in the audience that were part of this process, which involved hundreds of hours of due diligence, including practice in the classroom with the proposed materials. So Dina Termella back here, one of our principals, Brianna Weltsey behind me, Shannon Tolles, Aileen Azam, sorry, Denise Tracus, Maria Munoz. And Casey's right, oh, sorry, Casey Edgington from CNI. And this is just a small sampling of the entire committee, but they're here to field any questions that you may have around the adoption process. So with that said, let's see if I get a remote here.
There you go.
This process is pretty comprehensive, to say the least. It's a huge responsibility to make such a big decision with fiscal implications. To guide us through this process, there is a plethora, as you can see, of NRS, administrative code, and also our board policy. I'm going to forego explanations on each of these, but jump right into regulation to speed up the presentation. The regulation itself, which is recognized in Washoe County 6181, guides our practice, tells us phase by phase what we should be doing. Phase 1 specifically is the review. So first we develop a district-wide needs assessment. For us, we use the results of the 2014-15 Nevada Comprehensive Curriculum Audit tool, the district level tool. There was a major review of research in mathematical practice currently, and then we established the Instructional Materials Selection Committee. Phase 2 then takes us to where we are now. That's the selection and adoption. This encompassed a review of materials and textbooks submitted by the vendors through the RFP process, the selection of the best matches through that process. We also provided opportunities for field testing that I mentioned previously. We arranged for public review, which was advertised largely, including an advertisement in the local newspaper. We considered all new information that came from the public review and also the materials practice out in the fields. Came back together, had a very long meeting, January 19th. the results of that then came forward with a recommendation. It's important to note that you're able to approve the adoption as recommended by the committee this evening, but that also the State Board of Education will ultimately approve for use throughout Nevada. Phase 3, implementation phase. So this will be our next step if approved this evening and then approved by the State Board. And this would include creating and executing a professional development implementation plan, and also creating the distribution plan, how we get the text delivered, stored, and out to schools in a timely fashion. Give you a brief historical perspective of this process, which has been ongoing for many months now. It's important to note that the MER, if you've heard of MER thrown around in the budgetary world, that's the minimum expenditure reserve. We used to have the MER enacted prior to the economic downturn. The MER basically states that we have to spend X amount of money as proposed by the State Department on text and materials. When the economics turned down, so to speak, the MER waiver went into effect, so the districts could basically take out of the MER account to balance the larger budget. As of the last legislative session, MER is back in action. There's no waiver. So it was good timing that our adoption followed suit. It's important to note that everyday math for K-5 was originally adopted in 2001. So you can see that we're quite a ways off what is considered a traditional cycle of 7 years. We have not adopted any text outside of the advanced placement international baccalaureate since 2008. And you'll find that College Board requires certain adoption cycles for us in that realm. So it's been quite a while. Moving forward to April 2015, lo and behold, out of the NCAT survey, which encompassed over 1,037 responses from teachers and administrators, the need for aligned textbooks and materials was identified as a top district challenge. So we're here to answer that challenge today through this process. We also developed 4 fundamentals, so we had a PD focus district-wide to keep us all on a collaborative plane. Fundamental 1 specifically deals with core curriculum and instruction, so this would be a complement to that fundamental. And then, of course, August 2015, the request for proposal was launched. August 2015, selection committee application was developed, and we did this collaboratively, not on our own, but with Washoe County School District Purchasing Department and the Office of General Counsel to make sure that our process was sound. August and September 2015, applications were solicited from teachers, administrators, community members, and parents and guardians. Of the applicants, there were 42 teachers, 5 administrators, 2 community members, and 2 parents. Those were the applicants. September 2015, there was a blind review of applications of those 42 that was conducted by the Nevada Department of Education and University of Nevada representatives. So no names, it was the application, and these were outside entities making judgments outside of names. Committee membership included representation across grade levels and also special student populations, for example, ELL, special ed. September 2015, committee member notification took place. The final selection of the committee then was 24 teachers, 5 administrators, 2 community members, 2 parents. And that is exactly following the Nevada Revised Statute 390.010. This next slide, you can actually see the full breadth of the committee membership by their affiliation, school affiliation, that is. There were 5 administrators. The timeline moving forward, September 2015, there was an extensive training. I believe it was 3 days?
3 days for teachers.
Approximately 3 days for teachers, so pretty extensive on the process of how to make an equitable decision, a fair and equitable decision within NRS and policy. September through December 2015, committee reviews the 8 K-5 mathematics textbooks that were submitted. You can actually see a list by rank order of the 8 that were initially selected. That was then boiled down to a semifinalist list, which you see by rank order here. beginning with math expressions, Envision Math, and then finally Bridges in Mathematics. December 2015 through January 2016, committee members actually went out and field tested the semifinalist lessons to see how students responded and foremost how the teachers liked the material. These are some examples of the questions that teachers would have responded to on their notes page around the ease of navigation, the handouts that were included, the DOK level or deeper thinking level, visual images, was it interesting, the overall impression, and so forth. Moving forward, we also did the same for the students, 3 through 5. Got their opinions along with a ranking. They had a star system, 5 stars being the highest ranking. So the students were actively involved in the process. These are some of the actual student evaluation forms that you see in the presentation. They were pretty honest opinions, which is good. Timeline moving forward, January of 2016, we opened it for public comment. This was over several days, 3 days to be exact. Basically what we call the cage at Edison was open many, many hours per day, manned by Maria Munoz and company. Then January 19th, as I stated previously, committee reconvened to analyze feedback. Publisher presentations took place that day as well, and a lot of deliberation that day to make a final recommendation, which leads me to the recommendation. So the recommendation as set forth by this committee, which was broad-based by stakeholder input, a very comprehensive process has yielded us the recommendation to adopt Envision Math grades 2 through 5 by Pearson Publishing and Bridges in Mathematics as a grades K1 math text by the Math Learning Center. And that brings us to where we are right now, seeking board approval of this recommendation.
Yes, Trustee Rosenberg.
The bridge between the two, is it as much as seamless as they can be, or is there going to be a bump?
We're going to have Denise Trachis speak to that. She's done a lot of research since the recommendation was made.
Good.
So Denise Trachis, I'm the K-5 program coordinator. I specialize in mathematics birth to age 11. And so looking at this recommendation, because both programs are based on the standards, the Nevada Academic Content Standards, what we find is any concern is less. So I've been studying both programs, and I'm not done with that bridge alignment, but so far what I'm seeing, it's not going to be a concern. K1, the Bridges in Mathematics, that's coming out of Portland State. And what that really focuses on really strong numeracy skills for early learners. And so that program is based around students doing, not sitting and filling out workbook pages. And so when we think about early childhood approaches to education, as well as thinking about the standards themselves and what they require to students do, students in those grades are actually doing that in those materials. And since then, looking at research, I have found one school, and I'm looking at several other districts who have actually done something similar. So they're adopting Envision 2 through 5, which tells me our committee members are very well informed and definitely address not only the content issues when we think about students learning mathematics, but also the instructional implications as well.
I'm happy. Yeah.
Thank you. That was very informative. Yes, Superintendent Davis.
Well, Howard, thank you for asking my question, because that had been one of the questions I'd had. You know, when you serve on a textbook committee, goodness gracious, thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean, I remember serving on a textbook committee and didn't volunteer after that. That's a lot of work and time you give up. So we appreciate the time that you put into looking at both a variety of textbooks to arrive at this decision. And I'm so glad we discussed the bridge, because former principal, I started having lots of questions about using two different materials and so you got to think out of the box, because I think we're a progressive district, right? And how does this work so that even though we have these two different products, still instruction should be seamless as we look at ourselves when we move on, because some of our schools actually have sixth grade, right? So then there might be another curriculum in there, right, that we're not talking about. And so when you look, so I have to look at the full gamut. But I think after we had rich discussion, almost kick out fight about it, we believe that this could work for our district. And I'm glad that you really spoke on the concept development piece in the early years and what that looks like, because we know as they have those strong math literacy skills moving forward, it just makes them that much more better as they progress on into secondary. And so just wanted to appreciate and honor the committee and Scott's department and the work, because man, this has been a long time coming for this, and so we appreciate you as we continue to address the needs and the students in our district.
The question I have, I mean, in addition to thanking the committee for all the hard work, is what about from a teacher preparedness standpoint? Because there are two different curriculums. You have, say, if I'm a first grade teacher at GOM, and then I go and I'm going to be a third grade teacher at Westergaard. Now I have to teach a different kind of curriculum. How do we prepare those teachers? I know professional development is a part of this.
From a teacher.
Okay, from a teacher, great.
Alina Zam, nationally board certified for the record teacher. I've taught a K through 8 program at Willow Springs. I've taught a 1-2-3 image class at Smithridge, 1-2 combo class several times at Lens, and a 3-4 combo class at Mamie Tolles. Now I'm 13 years at Lens. And one of the things we understand and know about children is that from the K1 aspect, they're in the pre-operational stage. Right. And then from then on, they're moving into that concrete operational area. So truly that, if you're a teacher and you understand developmental levels, the curriculum isn't as much of an issue as understanding where they are and what they're learning. And that's one of the things we found. When I moved to Lens, we didn't have a math curriculum, and I had gone to a 5-day training and purchased out of my own money Bridges and used it for several years because I taught a 1-2 combo class and loved it. And then I brought it back out. This is my third textbook adoption. I enjoy them. And so
Martha.
And my last.
And her last.
And so I pulled out my Bridges stuff. I use the number corner still today, but I pulled out a lesson and was using it for my evaluation. And my principal actually asked me about the rigor. Because when we look at second graders and when they get that foundation, which is what Bridges can give our K1 kids, we really need to take our kids farther. And sadly, that was lacking in Bridges. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that I found really interesting is my favorite one was math expressions. But when I taught the 3 lessons to my students, interestingly enough, their favorite was Envision. Wow. And I just knew for sure they were not going to like that program. And so I just feel like, as educators, if we're looking at what's the developmental level, who cares what the pieces are, because you're going to put it together. The technology in Envisions is over the top amazing. Shannon awesome. Had to leave, but even down to the home connection, there's these little buddy videos. So if the parents are having difficulty, they can go this little 2-minute video and show them. It was really amazing. It was amazing. They're essential questions that they're connected with Google. So you can go to that guru, but their workbook is 800 or 900 pages. And K1 kept telling us, you can't have a first grader go turn to page 798. So it was very clear we needed to divide. And I know the hours we put in and the time we put in, and it really, having taught multiple grades in a variety of different situations, I would say that it's not going to be easy for the teachers to learn. I mean, even Bridges is very detailed. It took me 5 full days of professional development. But it's good math, and that's what I think we're looking for.
Right.
Can I ask a technology question? Because I have to tell you, the superintendent has to honor the process. So I didn't get to dabble, doodle, or look at any of this stuff. My question on the technology side is, of course, there's the teaching learning part, but I'm sure there's an assessment component to the technology piece. Does, you know what the next question is going to be?
Exciting, though, actually.
Yeah. So I want to, how does that mirror when it looks like what we're doing with SBAC testing and what kids have to do with technology? What does that look like on the technology side as it relates to what they can do? And then also, is it web-based so that they can do the activities at home, right?
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
all web-based, and
Okay.
the assessment was very close, but one of the greatest parts about this program, whether it be the worksheet, the workbooks,
What-
or all that ends up being graded and sent back to the teacher, and it automatically divides the kids into instructional groups, which is novel, and what a great help. There's these little core areas, and based on how the children assess, it just kind of shoves it to the, hey, here's some things to look at. And I think that was one of the exciting pieces. So it takes the guessing out, and then it gives you your RTI model. And you're going to want to do this with these kids and do this with this kids. And so that was great. But it doesn't, if your internet's down, we're all going to have our little
Right.
Show up.
books and our things. And so that was one of the companies had it was all online. Well, we know that's not going to work.
No.
So they were off right to the beginning. So really, in the big scheme of things, it goes on iPads, it goes on Android, it goes on your PC. It just is, it's very technology availability, but you'll have to learn. But there's these great little professional development videos. So you just link into them. And again, everything's kind of short and sweet. So if you're having trouble, there's these little videos to help you get there, and I'm excited.
First of all,
Wait,
pardon me.
I don't think my question got answered.
Oh,
So I was talking about the idea, I'm sorry, John, because I think Trustee Frankel too, I just want to make sure that do students have, so we talk about the digital divide and all these things, and kids can go home and utilize this. If they're taking or looking at opportunities of exploring this at home online, does it mirror what they would have to do on the SBAC? Like, we heard all the great stuff, but I never got a yes, because if you,
I didn't do the SBAC.
I'm just saying, because I've played in a lot of software that companies have, and some of them do a great job of, like, I love the idea that they use RTI model, they group kids, because that takes a lot of work off teachers, and like, there's some wonderful things I hear. But will kids be able to utilize what they learn every day in practice when they get to the SBAC based on this transit? I mean, do you understand what I'm saying, Scott? Do I have to call you to this podium?
We have an SBAC volunteer.
If I had participated, I would be able to answer my own questions, but I didn't have an opportunity to play in it. So I'm just curious, because we want kids to have those opportunities, especially kids who might not have lots of exposure to technology. When they do, are they seeing the same thing when they're being assessed? Because I tie this all into a whole bunch of other stuff from retention, and so are we making sure that kids can actually do the work when it's time for them to get an assessment?
For the record, Brandon Wiltsey, Implementation Specialist.
Hi.
Hi. So I focus mostly on kinder, but from the committee, when we were looking at it, especially the 2 through 5 teachers really felt that the Envision was based on that problem-based learning. So really hitting those higher DOK levels to prepare them for SBAC questions. And then it also includes an item bank of over 700 questions, so teachers can make their own types of assessments that are similar to SBAC, and they're able to really kind of look through those items and pick those higher level questions to assess their students. It's not adaptive as SBAC would be.
Okay. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yes, it's not
Okay.
an adaptive set, but there's a lot of flexibility for teachers to adapt assessments and those problem types to fit their different students' needs and to expose them to the variety of problem types regardless of their level.
What's adaptive?
So for example, the MAP testing, when they're taking it, it'll change the types of questions based on how they're performing. So this isn't like that, but it allows teachers that option to kind of use that RTI information that comes back when they complete those assessments and then create new assessments based on the students' scores and their levels to hit their instructional needs.
Trustee Frankel, you had a follow-up to that question.
Well, actually, I think one of the other pieces of that is when I think about technological literacy, I'm thinking about kindergartners and first graders, those that have grown up in homes with computers and devices. easily transition into using some of the computers and devices that we may make available through technology. So I think what I was hearing from your question was the similar challenge that some of the children taking the SBAC who may not be as technologically literate. What's in place to help those kids who to be able to use successfully the technology that comes with it. So I think that's kind of what I was thinking, because they have to learn certain technology skills to be able, I know that's a portion of the SBAC process. How does that align with that technology learning piece in this curriculum? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And
So
I know
thought
the committee was really, that was why, the Bridges has some technology components, but not a strong, especially as compared to Envision, not a strong level of that technology. So they really felt that by picking a program that had a really strong technology component that could be used in the classroom and at home, that would give the students the best exposure to taking, you know, assessments on a computer or in those various formats, so that when they were tested on the SBAC tests, that they were used to that format of being tested on a computer and just kind of seeing those types of items in that format. And I'm assuming Denise wants to add to this.
So I just need to clarify, Denise Trachis, K-5 Mathematics Program Coordinator. Envision does have a 3 through 5 adaptive assessment component, where it does some level of adaptiveness. I'm looking at the technology right now. As the curriculum coordinator, I actually needed to not be a part of the review process because I need to support the teachers and students for whatever they choose. So I'm looking at that right now. I'm actually finding the opposite. I just returned from New Orleans where I was with Smarter Balanced. I'm part of the State of Nevada performance writing team. And what we're finding with Smarter Balanced is their technology is actually limited to what they could do on their platform. And part of that is due to accessibility issues. And so we actually find that our students have better technology than the SBAC is able to have right now on the current AIR platform. And so just being aware of that. When Brianna's speaking about problem-based learning and the higher DOK levels, she's talking about norms, web, depth of knowledge. And so those performance tasks are those opportunities for students to gauge in a mathematical context that gets to students actually performing. And so there are multiple questions within one context level. And so that's when we talk about the Smarter Balanced Assessment, we talk about 4 claims in mathematics. Claim 1 is just your content and procedures. Claims 2, 3, and 4 really get to our 8 mathematical practices, which includes communicating, reasoning, problem solving, and modeling with mathematics. So looking at both programs, when I look at them, I look at it quite a different lens. I also heard another question. So in addition to, if we teach to our standards, we are teaching to the assessment. Providing students opportunities to engage in technology in a way that is meaningful and purposeful and not contrived. Using technology is not engaging in technology, so we'll be working with Robert Sidfer's department as well to think about how can we really support those 21st century learning. Another question I heard is, if a teacher leaves and moves from one school to another, are you going to provide ongoing professional development? And so I'm going to direct you to, right now, K-5 Mathematics has a 6 years mathematic plan. You will see the actual materials adoption was on the plan for this year, which is amazing, because that just tells me that somebody's really supporting us. That plan will need to be revised, right? Now we need to look at, again, another 6-year systemic plan. In that, in my initial planning for professional development, what I've asked is that we negotiate with the vendors providing these 2 products to ensure that we have ongoing professional development. It's not only teachers moving schools, but we have many new teachers coming in. And so we can't think that a 1-year rollout of a program is really going to support the needs. I am actually employed by the students of Washoe County and thus by the teachers. And so they're really while Kendra and Scott are standing here, they're really my bosses. And so part of this comprehensive professional development plan will be bringing in focus groups. We're asking that the PD be primarily led by Washoe teachers, that it still be on these standards and on the mathematical practices, right? But now how can we use this tool to leverage our time so that we could give students the opportunities that they deserve? So any other questions?
No, that was good. They're very comprehensive.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we've got a beginnings of a plan, and I invite any of you to contact me at any time, and I could send you where we are with that as well.
Trustee Mayor.
Yes, I have quite a few questions. And so, first of all, I want to thank you for not bowing to pressure from certain groups and putting Eureka Math in the mix, because that's a terrible program. It's teaches the wrong way of doing things and so forth. Well, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. So I'm glad that you scratched it out before presenting it to the board. The thing that I ask is, the question I want to ask is, Bridges K through 1, and so a kid has to learn a whole new vocabulary in the second grade. There's no continuity between Bridges and Envision in the second grade. Why can't you hold off till at least the third grade, where they have the same vocabulary, same procedures, and when they get ready for the no by 3 types of pressures?
That kind of goes right back to a second grade. You can't really compare K1 and second grade. Second grade students now take that underlying knowledge that they've learned and they start to apply it in a variety of different ways. That the vocabulary, the things they've learned is the groundwork. And then from second grade on is where we do a lot of the higher level thinking. We start taking that far. They use manipulatives, but then now they can take other people's perspectives. And so you're talking about 2 different stages of development. And so it wouldn't really matter. And I use Bridges, and it just doesn't provide the rigor for what our second grade students end up need. Especially with the way now we teach math, it's just different.
So even those slow developing second graders will profit by going into a more advanced mathematics course?
Well, sure, because what Envision has to offer is then now all these other variety of ways of teaching certain subjects. So again, in Bridges, we're trying to get those concrete, abstract thinking stuff built. By second grade, it's so easy to move
but
up
you're
or move
stopping
down.
at first grade.
With Bridges.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why don't you continue it into second grade?
Because it doesn't provide the things that second graders are now moving out of that pre-operational, so they can do more concrete activities. They need more of what they can do, more pencil and paper. They can open up to page 650 in a book. So it was kind of like Envision really met the needs of the second through fifth grade group, and K1 met the needs of
So
Bridges met the K1 group.
So Envision's no good for K through 1?
No.
Why?
Well, for one, how big
Chris
the
Tech, you go,
kindergarten
she's done.
book is 800 pages, and they might know 10. I'll let you speak to that because I'm out of kindergarten.
We had originally motioned that it was K through 2 as the committee, and we kind of stepped back from that and felt that wasn't appropriate just because third grade is a tested grade, and we felt that transition year might not be an appropriate time to switch curriculums. And we also, when looking at the vocabulary between Envision and Bridges, we saw that it crossed over and there was a lot of transferability between them. So we felt that if they came in with that strong foundation in K1, the deep number sense, the second grade teachers felt like they would have a very easy time transitioning them to those higher level thinking skills. So that was really the reason for that split at K1.
Even second grade, even starting a new procedure and teaching those students, the slower student catches on rapidly, huh?
And it's not necessarily that they're catching on rapidly, but if they have that strong enough number foundation in K1, they can apply that to those more abstract concepts in second grade. Whereas if it went K through 2, by the time they had to switch in third grade to the Envision, there might be a larger gap between. So it just seemed like an easier transition, and the second grade teachers really felt strongly about that.
And in second grade, they use, in Envision, they use manipulatives there?
Yes, they did.
All year?
Yes. Yeah, it was embedded throughout. that was one of the recommendations from the K and 1 teachers for Bridges, is it had such a strong foundation in manipulatives to really provide that concrete example for the students. And then the second grade teachers, and we've talked about that for the district implementation, is to maintain those manipulatives regardless of what the program's asking for, and just use those strong math practices for teachers.
Okay, yeah, I got your committee's names down here, so when the math scores in third grade aren't as high as they are now, I'm gonna wonder why.
So can I just piggyback? I think one of the, when you're in this business so long, one of the things, the first things that happened was I was thrown off a little bit too by the split at K1 versus 2-5, because traditionally when we do this work, we in elementary, it's kind of K2, 3-5. I see principals nodding their heads. But then we pushed ourselves to think a little bit more and said, thinking outside of the box, is there a bridge, like what's best for kids? Because I didn't want to be the superintendent sitting up here saying, well, as a principal, I don't see how that's going to work. And I think that the committee did a lot of work to explain why they stopped at K1 and not the traditional sense of K2, which was hard for me too in the beginning. The staff will tell you, I was like, what? But I think you did a lot of work to explain why the transition and what it looked like for academic outcomes. Now, Trustee Mayor is still going to hold all of us accountable, right? We got that on public record.
But I still haven't had all my questions.
And so I just want to add that about, we know you got more. So I get the K1-2 split traditional, and that was a concern for us also.
This is the most important thing that we do as a trustee, I think, is adopting textbooks. And I have a question about fifth grade. In the text that I looked, they don't have a strong pre-algebra starting the kids to go into a pre-algebra course in sixth grade. Why does Envision not do more in pre-algebra?
Thank you for your questions, Trustee Mayor. Really, that comes to the Nevada Academic Content Standards. And so when we look at the Nevada Academic Content Standards and we really look at what does that look like, in fifth grade, they're really working with expressions and equations and really understanding order of operations. So far, what I've reviewed of fifth grade, and I've been focusing on that 1-2 right now, just to make sure that we do respond to your first question. But when we look at that, what I'm noticing from the rubrics is that the teachers who evaluated that component of it felt like it was strong. So I'd love to get together with you and really look closer at those standards and ensure that is the case. Now, part of this is going to be a huge amount of work, because part of the reason why we adopt materials is really it's an equity and diversity issue, right? We've got such a high level of inter-district transiency that as kids move from school to school, we want to make sure that we are not creating an instructional gap. But part of that is also going through these materials again and creating mathematics curriculum. And so we've got curriculum documents currently for K-5. We will be looking at that again. So any areas of concern will be addressed. So far, I'm not seeing that one, but I'm glad that you've stated that, because we will take a deeper, well, of course, we need to take a deeper look. Our review committee actually took quite a stringent approach. We looked at every Nevada academic content standard. And so teachers were divided. There's 4 teachers per team. Each teacher was given what the Common Core standards say, critical content area. And that's coming out of National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, National Council of Supervisors of Mathematics, and Todos Mathematics for All. Those 3 organizations suggested that when school districts and individuals look at curricula, that they look at all the standards. And so ours was a much more comprehensive approach to review. Teachers then worked vertically also, so not only within their grade level where they had the expert in that area, but then we had vertical articulation as well. 5th grade teachers had an opportunity to work with our 6th 8 mathematics TOSA, Sue Ganyu. And so to ensure also, you talk a lot about the 1-2 bridge, but as we went through this process, we were also concerned about this 5-6 bridge. Yeah. And so when we looked at the progression documents, and the progression documents are documents that are the story behind the standards, we really did look at where does this where does this trajectory go to? The materials, and I have actual teacher comments. Part of the Envision in grade 5, we also had a GATE SWAS teacher who currently teaches the 5-6 acceleration. And one of the comments that I have on my notes from her is that even the challenge problems in Envision grade 5 were challenging to her students. And so what's interesting about that is that we look at that breadth and depth, right? We want to make sure that we teach to the standards at that grade level, but that teachers who need to address needs that go below or beyond have the resources to support those as well, as they are connected to the depth of the grade level standards. And so I will definitely probably go back to CNI tonight and look at your concern regarding the, in grade 5, the domain that we look at is operations and algebraic thinking, and that leads into 6th grade, and that domain is expressions and equations. So I'll definitely look at that strand. Many of the operations and algebraic thinking standards also connect to what we call the problem types, and that's in the Nevada Academic Content Standards on page 88 for addition and subtraction and 89 for multiplication and division, and that is a missing or an unknown in all places in the different situations. And so for 5th grade, what we'll also be looking at is for fraction multiplication, which is really new content for grade 5, and they also do unit fractions divided by a whole number in grade 5, that those problem situations are, for both partitive and quotative division and multiplication, are adequately addressed in the program.
So what you're saying is a K through 5 elementary school is going to prepare a kid for a 6 through 8 middle school and pre-algebra.
We prepare kids to be college and career ready from day one. And so it's not only just thinking about that 6-8, it's really thinking about in our mathematics trajectory, when that child gets to grade 6, do they have an opportunity in their K-5 build, do they have an opportunity to go in the different trajectories that we have for mathematics? So if they're in grade 5, do they have a on-ramp to get into a gifted program if that's where they should be? Do they have an on-ramp to get into any specialized program we have at that time? Whether we, because I can't forecast, we might have amazing STEM academies at grade 6 at that time. And so what we try to do is just provide them a solid foundation for any opportunity that arises at that time. Does that?
No, it doesn't answer me, but that's
okay.
Right.
In regards to the vocabulary, again, both programs speak to the Nevada Academic Content Standards, and so the vocabulary speaks back to the standards. And so you don't have programized, contrived, fancy techniques. What you have in both programs is the vocabulary of mathematics. And so, and that was something that when I listened to the committee speak, especially the committee members who worked with geometry, we don't call a rhombus a diamond. We call a rhombus starting in kindergarten. We don't call a decimal point a dot. Those programs that had such mathematical inaccuracies, our committee quickly ruled out. Because that's just not acceptable for that trajectory. Our mathematics vocabulary holds from K all the way through grade 5. I will tell you there's 2 areas that we look at not only as a district, because we have an inclusive and an exclusive definition for a trapezoid. So a trapezoid has 2 different definitions. And so things like that, as a coordinator working with such amazing teacher leaders and teacher teams, we will look at that as well, because our students need to know both definitions for trapezoid, because both are assessed on the Smarter Balanced Assessment.
Yes, Trustee Smith had a couple of questions, and then Trustee Rosenberg.
So my 2 questions are, what do we do in this new programming for students who are having a tough time reading? So are they going to be able to comprehend that? So what's the back course? Like, what do we do to help those kids with these programs?
Excuse me. Good question.
Kendra, do you want to speak to this? Yeah. And so that, I don't have a quick answer to that because that is also a question and a concern we have even with our mathematics assessment and when we look at it as well. With Bridges and mathematics, everything is experiential through a problem situation. And in Vision, it starts off with every lesson has a beginning, middle, and end based on the work of John Vanderwell, Karen Karp, Jennifer Bay Williams, with new authors added, Francis Skip Fennell, who are known in the field of mathematics for a problem-solving basis.
But not reading-solving basis.
What we do, right? So that is part of what professional development we've actually focused on for the last 5 years, is talking about how can we take mathematics that is put in contextual situations and not lose the mathematics and have it turn into an activity. And so some of that, we've really relied on the work that we know from What Really Matters with Struggling Readers, Allington's work, to bring in some of those effective reading practices into mathematics, yet not contriving it so that kids, it turns into just a reading activity and they lose the math. And so some of those strategies we have been working on in our PD starting in starting with the 2012 school year, I'm looking at Kendra, starting with the 2012 school year is how do we shift from a teacher telling instruction from a student centered to a learner responsive? And so how can we think about the students in our classrooms, those who are struggling? Perhaps what we do is reread the situation with them while we still work on the reading so that they could get to the mathematics. With other students, it is really looking at taking the question. So if there's a problem in a context, we take the question away so they could focus on the context. Using a lot of the strategies that teachers already use with ELL students in the GLAD strategies and the SciUp strategies is also something we've brought into our professional learning to support this instruction for all students. And so it's not an easy answer, and it's something we'll continue to work on, but it is a concern because this is how, when we look at the next generation assessments, there's a lot of language with the assessments. With K1, that was part of, when I look at the teacher's notes, and I wrote the grade level responses, that's a reason why they were worried about 800 plus workbook pages. There was a concern that while not only the readability of the text, that we would now get behind in not only reading, but now we're going to get behind in mathematics because of a loss of instructional time just trying to get 25 kindergarten children to find the number 793, which, by the way, is not a kindergarten standard. That does not appear until grade 2. So.
My next
Trustee
question.
Smith, you said you had 2 questions.
My next question, I think it's perhaps the most important question we could possibly ask, and it's coming from a parent's perspective, is I can't tell you how many parents say to me and how many times I see like, what the heck does this mean? Let me give you an example. Just the other day, my 4th grade student comes to me and says, Dad, I need help figuring out this square with all these numbers. It's some Greek guy's theory on how to find the prime number. And my exact words were, what the hell? That's like, I don't use that archaic
Pythagorean
system.
theory. You don't know it?
No, it's some other guy. He's got a name. It starts with an E or something. I don't know.
Euclid.
Yeah, I was like, who cares?
Good
Let's
old
just figure out another way to do this, right? So the question in that lies, and there's a lot of parent frustration, and you hear this when we're talking about those people who are really against Common Core math and Common Core standards is, we have Engage New York, we have Eureka Math, we have all this other stuff. Why don't we have Nevada Math? But the real question really is, how does this get down to the parent who now has to help the kids because what we say is, that's not how I was taught to do the math, right? And if we don't know how to do the math as parents, so if we adopt a new text and it's going to have so much web-based learning, how are we going to help the parents to understand this, keeping in mind that research shows for adults, and most people really, that instruction for the parents to help their kids has to be written at really no more than a 7th grade reading level and comprehension, because most people don't understand that, past that comprehension. So how do we help the parents in the home with this new material? Because that seems to be very controversial, not only here, but across the nation. New math, but we don't know how to help them.
And I'm going to start off, and then I'm going to pass it. So that's really part of the beginning tentative plan as well. And I'll tell you, and I take full responsibility of this, we've really failed in this area over the last 5 years as we're trying to get the teachers on board and the support. I haven't taken as proactive approach that we needed to separate instructional strategies from mathematics. And so moving forward, the next NCTM president, who's Matt Larson, is currently a K-12 curriculum coordinator for a large district in Nebraska, Lincoln Public Schools. And so I've had lots of conversations with him as well on how do we build sustainable support for parents that is not a one-hit show. And how do we also differentiate the mathematics from the instructional strategies? So you might have seen the gentleman who wrote the check on Facebook, and he used a 10 frame to write a check. And so it's confusing, again, instructional strategies from mathematics. And so that really is your question. Your question is really on the forefront as we move forward with teachers. What support are we going to provide parents? Now, Envision has a little bit better parental support in that, and so I'm focusing more on what might district math nights look like for K-1 that are focused around the mathematics, and then bringing in the instructional strategies so that parents also know how to support students. So I'm going to start with talking about from the district perspective that exactly your question is what we're focusing on as well moving forward, that we can't just think of this as an implementation or a rollout to teachers and for students. We also need to think about it for those parents and guardians and families that live with those students. I'm going to let Aileen speak about Envision, and Envision, the parent component for 2.5.
Denise, can I just add, we don't want you to go home and work. I think you made that statement earlier about going back to work, and I'm thinking it's 6 o'clock. And then I think we should also add, as the work we do with Parent University and expansion, it wouldn't matter if we were still using whatever we were using now, Parents Struggle, right? And as we expand, whether it's reading, science, or whatever, we expand our opportunities for our parents through our parent engagement also. And looking at the scope, I agree with Trustee Smith and looking at the scope of the pieces provided, but we also know that it's one thing to have it, it's something else to have someone show you how to utilize it so you can ask questions. So I think as we work with Lisa's department, how are we also giving parents opportunity to come in and look at this and be able, if they have questions, whether it's kindergarten or 5th grade, to be able to help their students. So I think that speaks to a larger parent engagement issue.
Well, and before you start, part of what I was getting at is, if we're going to spend $3.5 million to buy these textbooks, what has the publisher done for us lately? And not for just the teacher and the student, but for the parent.
Well, good
so
news.
What is their role?
Envision has done it for the parent. That's
Good.
the buddy video, and you can get it on your cell phone. We went through this whole thing, and we talked about, we had a lot of at-risk teachers there. Their parents have smart devices. So the nice thing is that any homework assignment has a buddy video. It's an animated. They showed it to us. This is how you do the activity. This is what, and it's like 2 minutes. Also for our students, we have visual animated video. Now I know the internet has to be working in order to make that work, but that should be a given. We should be working in a district where our internet is working, and if it doesn't, we'll have to come up with that. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of like an overhead or whatever, but Envisions actually did that, and that's their whole focus, is this is how we can help you and help get this information out to your parents. Buddy videos have nothing to do with the teacher. It's all about the home. I have to tell you, Bridges in Mathematics Home Connection is absolutely amazing. And like I said, I used it. It's very specific, down to some of the game. You send some of the games home. It even shows you how to make the spinner, and then what you should expect to do with your student, and how to help your child engage in this home connection. And so, for instance, when you do I was doing patterning, I'm doing money. The home connection takes the idea of patterning and money together. There it is. And then the parent was given these opportunities that they do together with their child, building patterns, looking at patterns. So I feel like having raised 2 kids in Washoe County School District who are now successful adults, what our students are now about to get, I feel sorry for my own children that they didn't have it. I have to tell you that, and as a mom and a teacher, I think we're about to hit what's not going to be easy for the teacher to learn. It's going to take a little bit of work. But all day long, my students tell me, hey, why don't you try to click that button? Or what if you do this?
Exactly.
And even our most at-risk,
Exactly.
that's been I've taught at Lens. My PTA has bought every active board. I've bought my own tablets, 25 of them, so that my students have technology. I've had to use that out of my own money because I'm not a title school, but the title schools all have it. So this idea that they don't know how to use technology, I think, is false.
Bull.
So
Bull
I
too,
say, hands up to Envision for including the family. And if you want to check, get online, and I'll give you my password. It really is. It's a big workbook, but it has vocabulary cards. It has some of the test assessments. They've really thought of everything.
Well, that's why I asked the question. Just real quick. I asked that question because we'd be remiss not to talk about it from a parent perspective, especially with the movement in math across our whole country right now.
Do you know?
That's got to be a huge part of the role, equal to the decision that we'd make for supporting the student has to be the parent. Because so many times, and we know research shows it, that when parents come home and they're helping their kid with the math and they say to their kid, I don't know how to do that, right? Guess what happens to the kid now? Oh, dad doesn't know who Euclid's whatever is. It must not be very important, right? And it doesn't mean that the parent thinks that, but we see negative trends in performance in students when parents consistently say, I don't know how to do that, or I don't know what that means. And it's like, gosh, I'm in 4th grade, Dad. Look at you.
No, thank you, Trustee Smith. I want to get to Trustee
Rosenberg.
Rosenberg.
You mentioned money. I started teaching in 1958. I started teaching at the middle school level and then went into elementary school. In New York, they came up with one of the most innovative programs in mathematics in the world. They had two kinds, understanding mathematical concepts and understanding U.S. currency. The kids all got A's in understanding U.S. currency and the way that a dollar comes down to 4 quarters or 10 dimes or whatever it happens to be. I mean, this whole approach looks fantastic to me, but it's not new. It's simply taking advantage of the new. John, you'll forgive me. You and I are dinosaurs. Kids are different today.
They are.
Okay? One of the things that's always been in any of my curricula syllabus is your learning is what gets you the grade. Bull. What do you teach me? I'm old. I need to learn it just as much as you do, damn it. And the kids come in and take over all the technology. I need a cheat sheet to turn this damn thing on. I'm not in the least bit worried about the kids. They'll make the transitions. They really will. All we have to do is provide a little ramp so that they can do it. But you said that one of the things that you looked at wasn't that seamless, and it scared the hell out of you. Fine. That's how you do this. And we learn together as we go.
Well, this has been a very comprehensive discussion, but I will now call for a motion.
What are we talking about? I'll make a motion. Wait a minute.
I'll do it.
Okay, please.
Okay, I move that the Board of Trustees approves the purchase of K-5 mathematics instructional materials for approximately $3,500,000 with funding coming from 030 MER funds account.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we've had plenty of discussion, so I'll bypass that. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion carries, and let the record show it is unanimous. Thank you very much.
I would like to ask a question, however. Is that lady passionate about anything? I mean, I would hate like the Dickens to get involved with her with a discussion about what something she really cares about. Good Lord.
All right. All right, closing items. Are there any other public comments? Fantastic. The meeting is adjourned. Do I need to ask for motion? Okay, great. The meeting is adjourned. Announce the next meeting. Next meeting announcement. I know, I got it. I'm looking at you because you asked for it. February 9th at 2 p.m. right here. 2 weeks from today. We are adjourned.